Hello everyone, microphone's working, everything's fine. Okay, quick introduction from me. Welcome everyone. This is going to be a discussion with 4 members of the OpenVic2 team, I should say. Excuse, this is going to be so chaotic. It's going to be a bit chaotic, off the cuff. It's going to be full of nerves. But there's 4 members of the OpenVic2 team. See, I've said it wrong twice already. 4 members of the OpenVic2 team. So the trailer that I had for this stream is incorrect about that. I've added a couple more people. So hello everyone, welcome. It's going to be a very interesting stream. This is obviously following up from my video yesterday. Check it out about OpenVic2, which in turn was about the OpenVictoria2 video I made a few weeks before that. The stream is going to be here on YouTube. I have moved most of my streams to Twitch. This is remaining on YouTube because I'm going to keep discussion streams and perhaps things about OpenVic2 on here. This will remain as a public archive on the main channel after the stream is over. If you would like to submit a question or make a point about the project that we want us to answer, there's going to be a section at the end where we talk about super chats. We will go through them one by one, answer any questions then. The reason for that is there's going to be loads of questions and points made in the chat. We can't respond to it all. And if you leave them in a super chat, we'll be able to go through them systematically at the end and respond. I apologise if you're going to miss out on a question because of that, but it's a necessary format. And I need to put food on the table, actually. I haven't made any money, haven't been on a break for Christmas. It's time to get back. We need to put food on the table. So, welcome to everyone. Let me get my proper background music on here. There we go, Baroque live stream. So yeah, if you want to support the channel with those super chats and ask a question, we'll get back to you on that at the end. So what else am I going to say? I mean, there's going to be an upcoming Victoria 2 Twitch stream on Sunday, Victoria 2 Live. There's going to be more follow-ups. The Dev Diary was just released. Join the community Discord. And I'm going to go back to the team right now. Hold on a sec. Okay, I'm back. Welcome everyone. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, all.
Hey.
Hello.
Brilliant. Yeah, I was just watching your mispronunciation of the project title.
Again.
You were just watching my stream, right?
Yeah.
I've rudely interrupted you by having you fucking on it.
Yeah, exactly. I had to mute it and everything. It was annoying.
Okay, so these are 4 legends of the OpenVic2 team. It's finally time we can hear from them. Because in my 2 videos, I've droned on and on myself without a word from anyone else, and I've also talked about people. And at the end of the second video, just yesterday, I said it's finally time to prove that this isn't all in my head, and I didn't make everything up, make all these people up, and come up with fake Discord screenshots of messages, and just fake the entire thing. It's time to prove that it's real. So I'm going to introduce these members of the team. We've got Catylist, who we've probably been introduced to before. I mentioned him in the video a lot. And as a matter of fact, we also had an open TTD stream together last week for like 30 people who watched that. Hello, Catylist.
Hello. Nice to be here. Yeah. Although, of course, I was here last week as well. So hello again for people who were there.
So you have become the community manager of OpenVic2.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, if you read our dev diary that is on our Discord, then you'll know that it was not entirely by design initially, although of course nowadays it very, very much is. It was mainly because I was interested. I watched the Spud videos, lots of us did, and went down into his Discord after looking around for it. It was a bit of a look. Found it eventually, and I really wanted to contribute music to the project. However, I soon found out that wouldn't be possible because there was no real project at all, no organised effort, and so I felt, well, if it's not been done, I mean, someone's got to do it. Let's just do it, and then I can pawn it off to someone else, and I can just get back to writing music. So that kind of happened. So But now I'm writing music and also doing quite a bit of the organisation along with my...
All right, that's fantastic. This goes to something else. That first video, OpenVic2 ? I made that video in late December and I prepared it as a video to release while on holiday, so something in advance to release. So I released it on holiday, away, spending time with loved ones and all that for the Christmas period and the New Year period and everything. So I had it, and I wasn't really available to do follow-up on it. I wasn't available, didn't have time, because I released it on holiday. I didn't really think of that. I just thought I'll put the idea out there. I had no idea how fast things would develop after it. I thought, well, I put the idea out there, maybe some people might come forward, maybe the Vic2 community might get talking, maybe something will come of it eventually. But things came together so quickly, and I wasn't able to make a Discord for the project, and I also don't like making Discords. And then Catylist basically lived up to his name and came forward and was the person to really get it going after I released the first video.
Yeah, well, yeah, essentially, basically, that's kind of what happened. It was quite bootleg at the beginning, I feel, but we're definitely far from that now. Far from those early days of me doing the classic and forgetting to disable that everyone. But luckily, it was only 10 people in the Discord, so it was. They were very polite about it, and we got it fixed, and it was all good.
Yeah. Well, something about the project is just how quickly things have advanced. So that's definitely, hasn't it, guys? Don't you think?
Yeah.
It's been pretty overwhelming, to be honest. Last few days as well. It's just there's so many people coming in and offering their skills, and we're looking at experienced professionals most of the time as well. People who've got 4, 5, maybe 10 years experience as working professionals, and with evidence of that as well. I mean, there was one application earlier from a 3D modeler who had just endless reams of like 3D models that looked like they'd been produced by a Games Workshop or something, and that was just one guy.
Right, Joe. Well,
dozens of people like that.
That's really, I mean, that's part of the whole thing. It's just crazy how many people have come forward and how fast. But let's introduce you as well, Joe. So we go way back.
We do, yeah. I don't know exactly when, but I think it was something like 2010, 2011, something like that. That's I think when we first met. I think
I would say 2012. We started off in a Mountain Blade Warband Napoleonic Wars regiment, and you had
times.
You had Victoria 2 multiplayer on the side in that regiment, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
and that's like I already had that game, and I'd done some single player. I was like, oh wait, they've got Victoria 2. I'm going to join that. And then as they say, wait, what do they say? They say, and then the rest. History. Thanks. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Thank God Patrick's here.
So my earliest memories of Victoria 2 multiplayer are there, and they're in. My earliest memories are basically the China meta, before there were rules against it.
Yeah, me as Mexico taking over like large portions of China and becoming number 3 in the world, and then
having like 27 million pops.
Oh, it's so funny though, and the arguments we would have over China, and it just got to a point where we're like, no China. No one's allowed China. No, you can't have it. And
whenever you see the China rules in a multiplayer game, that's where it came from.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, good times. But that was a long time ago. And I mean, you made a comment that at some point in the past I was a good player of Victoria, but people would wipe the floor with me these days. The meta has moved on so much since those days.
It really has. And also the fact that back when we started playing it, it was a house divided.
I actually started playing before that.
Yeah, you did. Well, it was House Divided, but yeah. And the funniest part, I mean, we could have an entire separate stream about this. We should probably move on soon. But I remember when Heart of Darkness came out and we played it, and we were like introducing Heart of Darkness in a multiplayer game and looking at all the features. Like, oh my God, these newspapers.
Yeah, colonization as well was like completely revamped, and I can't even remember how it was revamped. I just remember it was better, and then Crises, I think we were a bit mixed on. We were never like fully on board with that, because it was like, oh, let's go into a world war over Western Sahara, and people would like chicken out because they were afraid of losing like a world war. Then we played world wars, and I think Spudk and Nats, with both of us, we saw the magic in Victoria 2, where we just had like this grand game with like 10, 12 people or so, and we just tore each other's nations to pieces in these like grand coalitions, and then we'd like reform and then have another grand world war. And we just had these like spectacular games,
Exactly. I said basically what you said is almost exactly. Maybe you watched the video when I made the Victoria 3 War System video. Have you seen that?
I think I have, yeah. I think
Well,
I
maybe
actually
you
have
got
seen
it there
yeah.
then. But that's basically what I said
Yeah.
about Victoria 2 and why the war system in Victoria 2, although not that many players among the player base have experienced it, the great things about the Great Wars and how everything leads up to it, the diplomacy, only to tear it all down in the Great War, that's all that great stuff. And, you know, obviously I experienced that for the first times back in those early years and then never looked back. That's why I always, ever since I did those early games and that, I've had the craving to keep coming back.
Yeah, for me,
Which I did.
it's also the fusion of all of the internal country management, industrialization, the pop promotion, I guess fine tuning like the armies as well. Like the wars were like the nice capstone on a good game, where you would be doing everything else. And I think the great thing about Victoria game, as opposed to all the other games in that kind of series, it's just the focus on many different elements that you could almost like specialize in. And there were many ways to play it as well.
Yeah, so this is the part.
Versatility and modding as
Sorry,
well.
this is the part where we're going to go off on way too many tangents, and we need to actually streamline. We still haven't introduced like half the people here who are sitting there. They're sitting there like, what? They're just going to talk about the old days. These fucking old men talking about their old times in Victoria, and I'm just sitting here waiting. Okay, who am I going to introduce next? Spartan or Patrick? Who should we do?
Well, let's go down the list. So
should we do the lead artist?
Yeah, I'll step forward. Right. Okay.
Okay.
So
Good, thanks.
obviously I'm Patrick. I'm doing the design and art elements for OpenVic2. I've got a lot of background in art, but I'm just sort of the face of the project in terms of what we've got so far. There's a really great art team behind us. We've got a lot to show for it already. I mean, you can see the first sort of key draft of the logo that's still obviously subject to change in the bottom left of the screen. And as well, we've got lots of other little bits going on in the background. But, I'm really excited to see what the art team's going to put out. We've got a meeting tomorrow. So if anyone else is wanting to get involved, now's the time to do it. But we were looking to get forward with starting to touch up UI elements. I know there's projects ongoing in terms of getting a render of the world map prepared, so we're looking at even touching up textures and what have you for that. So there'll be a lot more exciting and also tangible gameplay related artwork that we can show you in the near future. So I'll be sure to keep you updated on our progress as and when it appears.
Yeah, and we should probably have at some point an art related dev diary as well, because we've released the first dev diary today, so we can get more of that out. And then obviously in future videos, I'd love to see an update on what the art team has done and put them in the video, feature it, and in streams and stuff. And just I'm looking forward to that as well. But looking forward to everything about the project, especially the artwork of it. But there's one thing, and you know exactly what I'm about to talk about, don't you?
No. Listen, I plead the fifth.
Oh, he just raised a legal term. He just raised a legal term as well. But
oh goodness.
Every time,
I mean, go on, Spud.
So what's the legal status of the OpenVic2 project? I plead the fifth. No.
I mean,
which of course doesn't apply because we're all half of us are just British, so it doesn't even apply. But something that's not so great is incorrect. In the video I uploaded yesterday, I showed off the potential loading screen section during the art section, where we have the idea for a historical painting and a text of what it is in the bottom left. And I said how historical paintings are just tried and tested. They work perfectly in Paradox Games mods for loading screens and stuff. Unless, of course, you get them wrong. And it's not what is described. Oh. This is a painting of the charge of the Scots Greys at Waterloo. Not,
He's
in
got
fact,
receipts.
Not in fact the charge of the Light Brigade. Not only is it the wrong one, this is outside the period of Victoria to the charge of the Scots Greys at Waterloo.
In my humble defence, right, this was after a long period of fanning around with the logo, and I blame Catylist entirely for that. He was behind me with the whip the entire time, and I finally managed to put it together. And I quickly wanted some sort of demonstration to show it off. So there was the other loading screen there. That was the Defensive Rooks Drift one. That was done with the previous logo design, so I wanted to do something similar with the final logo version. And I very quickly went on to find an image, and this is listed on Google and on a website discussing artwork as the Charge of the Light Brigade. So I was misled and under much pressure. So I do apologise for anyone who is bothered by my grave mistake. I want to apologise to the Victoria 2 community, the historical community, anybody who served at Waterloo as well. I apologise to you, and also the Light Brigade themselves.
You know how the police, I guess it's particularly in America, how they use certain psychological tactics to get people to withhold their Fifth Amendment right to silence, and they get them talking. I think we just managed that.
Quite.
But
I mean,
so they can incriminate themselves. But I mean, you made a great defense, though. What was I about to say? Oh yes, I was also going to make this joke. Your artwork would have worked better for Open March of the Eagles too.
Yeah. Oh goodness.
Maybe after this project's wrapped up, I can move on.
Not looking forward to. I mean, I don't know. I don't want the March of the Eagles fan base, the vast March of the Eagles fan base, to come after me. But I'm not as looking forward to running that project.
Sorry, Spartan, but we still have to talk about the artwork a bit longer. So, because there's a lot to this. This is actually really important. So on the comments to the video in question where this artwork was on and it was wrong, guess who should correct it and be the first person to point it out? Other than, what's his name again? The armchair historian.
Who is he?
The armchair historian himself of a YouTube channel of 1.89 million subscribers should come in and correct this artwork and say this is in fact the Charge of the Scots Greys. Who should do it but him?
Right, this was part of my master plan. I didn't want to unveil this, but actually I made the error on purpose with hopes to drag these large channels out from behind the cover and expose themselves as fans of OpenVic2. So my trap and my honeypot succeeded on all levels.
One proud Bavarian-esque psyop. I love it.
Love it.
I'm joking, by the way. That is a total joke. But, so... the next thing I want to say is you wouldn't think that a massive history YouTuber would be on the front lines correcting people's artwork and videos, unless maybe he has a team of advisors that go around looking at stuff so he could come in, or he's in, or the other theory, which is he's actually following this project because he actually has his own sort of game that he's. I don't know exactly his role in the game. I think he might be the person who came up with the idea, but. This game, I think it's called Fire and Maneuver, so he's sort of in a similar boat where there's a game being advertised and developed alongside the channel, so maybe that's the link there with him. So I thank him anyway for correcting that, so that's nice. We got that corrected. Now, finally, last but not least, about 2 hours into the stream, we can finally introduce Spartan322. Hello.
Hey. Yeah, I'm the lead dev, so I get to work on all the crazy stuff that everybody else is only in the process.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next. No, I'm joking. So yeah, how did you find out about the project and get involved and everything? Whatever you want to say, take it away.
So my biggest thing is I've been a fan of you for at least 2 years, maybe 3 years. No, it's got to be around something like that.
You tell me what the first video is that you watched, and I'll probably tell you when it was.
Man, I can't even remember.
Your mic does cut out a little bit. It's sometimes quiet, but I think I get the gist of what you're saying, though.
Yeah, I've been watching for a while. I saw that. I was like, I'm immediately jumping in. I can totally contribute to this. I wasn't expecting to become lead dev, but it just kind of happened because I just happened to have, I guess, some experience skill.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how Spartan managed to become lead dev myself. Actually, I got to be honest. But yeah.
Whoa.
Savage.
Sorry, the conversation with that is it was.
That's Spartan, you undersell yourself.
No, I'm going to stop the underselling.
Yeah.
Right, listen. This guy he's got like massive amounts of experience. He's absolutely professional. Totally appropriate to be a lead dev, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you here, and as well as everyone as well. Joe, Catylist, Patrick, is great.
I also think it's quite important, and well, I'm not sure. I feel like Spartan likes to undersell the specific bit, but he did work on and put through some code for the actual engine that we are building OpenVic2 on in an official capacity.
Yeah, I've contributed a bit to Godot. I've tried to. Well, I actually rebased an entire bit of an old code stuff, so I've been trying to work on it as much as time as I get. I've also been in a responsible for another modding project back long ago, where I was the first one to come up with with a manner to inject into the game for the Hacknet. I made what was called Hacknet Pathfinder, or not. I made the first version of the injection system, and then that got refined later. So I've been around on some projects, been modding, been in game engine stuff, not worked on anything specifically big.
As well as that, just in these days of the project, especially early on, you were right there just talking about the project, the technical stuff. And I mean, as I was looking at the other conversations, basically what I said in the video, you and Fakebite, of course, who's not on this stream, but the other person I would say, at least early on in the project, one of the few people I noticed that were clearly competent and knew what they were talking about right off the get-go. I noticed it.
Yeah, and that's something I've noticed as well. So, the team's composed of people of different kinds of skill sets. Spartan and Fakebite probably the two most technically focused. So looking really into the weeds, into how we will communicate information over networks in a deterministic manner, the merits of using an entity component system, the merits of using various languages and frameworks, graphical technologies, and assembling this together in a way that would enable us to deliver the kind of game features and functionality we want to see that we did originally see in Vic2. But with the sort of modern polish and free of the problematic bugs we've come across. Like desyncing is like a huge problem, right? Is anyone here like not had like 3 desyncs in one session of Victoria 2? Because it is such a problem. We used to joke about it in some of our old games. I think we just have like 10.
This will end up as another tangent about the old games. But
yeah,
I mean, what I will say is we go. No, that's fine. It's just funny. From the old days how bad desyncing was and all that, and it's just that in the more modern days, when I've been playing and making these videos and streams of Victoria 2, it's become so well known and huge. Just out of sync. It's been it's a meme. It's massive. Everyone knows it. And just to hear you talking about it from the context of the old days is kind of funny because it seems even more innocent back then. But I would say we've had times that it's been a lot worse than it ever was. Because we've gotten more players. We used to play with like 10 to 12 players. These days, in the recent couple of years, we've had games of up to 36 players, 20, 25
that is
players.
Absolute madness. How do you even cope with that? People just be dropping left and right.
And I think back in the day, we didn't actually understand out of syncing that much. Did we really ever rehost as soon as someone went out of sync? Or did we just keep going and see what happened?
No, I think we hosted pretty much immediately on someone dropping, which explains some of the issues we had. Yeah.
I
think it was like over time we figured out like, well, if we just let the game play out a bit, then it'll work a bit better. Because sometimes you get like there's something hidden in the game engine that we can't see, right? It's like a black box we're trying to like wrestle with, right? Trying to like shake it in the right direction, angle it just right. And what would happen is like if you have an out of sync event and you like immediately rehost, then straight away, like within like a few game days or so, you can get another out of sync from rehosting. So what you do is you let the game play a little, and see if you can like get over the hump. It's like imaginary sort of like problem in the box, and then hopefully you're in the clear from then on. But yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, also with all these desyncs, the community has come out with so many superstitions about what causes it, and trying to figure out just by trial and error, and I guess what the team may call soon testing methods, just seeing what happens when you do certain things, see if it causes this and that, trying to find out what causes out of syncing to no avail over all the years. It just happens. But basically, something else when we introduced you, Joe, we just ended up talking about the old days. But what is your, if you want to talk about your background and all that, and your experience,
Do you want my professional qualifications?
Whatever you want to say that might be relevant.
So I'll start my professional qualifications. So I have a first-class master's degree in computer science, and I have about 5 years experience in aerospace industry doing software engineer. I'm a software engineer by title. Soon I won't be a software engineer. I'll be a senior. It's just a title thing, really. I've got a background working on like real-time embedded software systems for mission critical applications with high safety integrity levels, and I've done a lot of full software product lifecycle work on what is effectively a 10-figure budget program, so a pretty big kind of body of work. And that's
OpenVic2.
Oh, if only. Well, to be honest, I'm actually dreading the more resources. At this point, we're like trying to keep the ship steady while so much time, attention, and effort comes into the game. Yeah, trying to keep on track. But needless to say, I've got a background in particular with managing requirements and all different aspects of software. And like, if I can sum it up in one way, it's like software engineer by title. But in reality, I found myself doing literally everything else but the software code itself. So everything around that. And I think one of the things that I'm putting in terms of expertise is really rounding out that product life cycle and making sure we do the project properly in a professional manner. That we aren't just a bunch of amateurs just winging it on the cuff, just going, let's write some code. And then, after a year's development, we've got this spaghetti code nightmare we're trying to debug. And there's no debugger, So, yeah, that's who I am and my sort of attitude towards the project. I think that's probably a better intro than, oh yeah, I remember that time we played Vicky back in the day.
Well, that's what I am. That's all I can talk about. That's my job. I fucking play Victoria 2 for a living. It's my job. So, nah. Yeah, like, obviously, just absolutely great to have someone with all that experience on the team, and yeah, I don't know, absolutely amazing, and absolute pleasure, and looking forward to seeing how the project comes forward. So I suppose we could go off on loads of tangents based on anything we just heard. However, I did have a sort of rough plan of what we were going to talk about. We just had the first dev diary. That was the first topic. Now, half of it was Catylist introduction that he gave, but there's all right, let me get it on the screen.
Oh, yeah, there's quite a bit more.
That's the first page.
Well, I would say, I mean, yeah, I gave myself a bit, but I was considering cutting it back, but then I think I forgot.
Oh, I didn't mean it in a negative way.
No, it's fine. But I will say that there is actually something about this dev diary that I think is good to address, and that would be, namely, the person who was absent from this team at the moment, and that would be FakeBite.
Which page is this on? Or do you want to go through
page 2?
Do you want to go through it systematically?
Well, I can do that.
Is this? I can't actually read it right now because it's only a small PNG on a tiny window of mine right now.
Oh, fair
so it's
enough.
on the screen. The viewers can read it, and so this is the first page.
Yeah. So that I just go on and I introduce myself and I say that I got to be honest. I'm probably more. I don't want to. Knock my own community managing skills, but I'm definitely a much better composer than I am a community manager, and I'd say I'm a pretty okay community manager. So, and I'd say I'm a pretty good composer. I'd say, but yeah, I came on intending to be a composer, and I basically just said earlier in the stream more or less what this first page says, and then a slight bit in the second page. The second page, though, is probably something I'd like to more draw attention to.
All right. Is that page 2? Is it down or?
That is page 2.
Right,
that is page 2. Yeah. I went, left, right, down.
Page 2 of the sun.
Yeah. Oh goodness. That's mainly the. You'll notice that FakeBite has the person who's not here actually has the largest section, not by too much. But he is a professional game developer. He worked on a Total War game. He is a specialist in networking, which is extremely valuable and somewhat of a golden goose talent to have. He often says that networking code is really easy, and I can only imagine how many people who hate networking code could react to that sentence. But he's extremely competent and very, very qualified, and that's why he is, as Spud said in the video, he is in charge of abolishing oosing, so to speak. He's in charge of making sure that. Yeah, well,
when I put that on this, when I said that, I did have a little disclaimer because I knew some Redditor would pick me up on it and go, "Oh, this isn't how it works. You can't just abolish oosing. It's inherent in the game." I know it's not how it works, but to layman's terms, to my viewers who have put up with oosing for all these years, that is, well, basically, like we were just saying about everyone else, FakeBite, he's massively experienced. He's just a professional, and it's an absolute pleasure to have him on the team. And more importantly, we will have him on a future discussion, of course. He's not able to be on this one. This one gradually got more and more people because I thought, initially I was like, well, let's get a few people on it so we can really let them discuss, and then we'll have more people on different ones. Another problem, of course, with having more people is half the people are going to be silent half the time when another person is talking. They might get bored, and then they might just leave. No, they won't.
Speaking of...
Yeah, go for it. Was that Patrick?
Did you have something to say, Patrick?
Oh, no, I was only joking about leaving, so...
All right. Oh, he's just...
I might take my leave right now, actually, as well. Yeah.
not only leaving the voice channel, but the whole project.
Yeah, I'll delete the Discord on the way out as well. Anyway, so FakeBite obviously is not here to introduce himself, but he is extremely, extremely competent, and he was immediately in from day one, and that's why we decided, this is one of the guys who needs to be on the team, and for good reason, and I hope everyone will agree with me on that.
I mean, he's got something like 10 years experience solely on networking technology.
He
really knows his stuff with determinism.
Hesitantly overqualified, I'd say, perhaps.
Yeah.
Which is excellent that he's so passionate.
I mean, he knows so much about determinism that he has the answers on the meaning of life and whether we have free will.
Exactly.
Does anyone know what Warhammer game he worked on? He was like on. It was a Warhammer Total War.
It was a Total War game. I'm not sure which one it was. I don't think he specified.
He did,
but
somewhere. But yeah, it was one of the Warhammer games for Total War. So that's pretty impressive.
I'll tell you which one it was. One sec. I'll put it up. It'll take me a few seconds.
Total War Battles Warhammer.
Is that any good? I don't know.
It might be. Let's look it up. Let's look it up.
I mean, whether it's good or not, obviously, isn't actually important. It's that he worked on it. But yeah.
So well, come on, we got to. I think it's good tea. I mean,
it's a mobile game.
Oh.
Oh.
Is it?
It is. Let's look it up.
You're looking it up now, don't you?
IGN.
To be fair, though, if you're working on a mobile game, I mean, it's probably going to have good networking, right?
I mean, yeah, fair enough. I'm not exactly. I don't think it says actually in his thing where I got my information from. I don't think it says what Warhammer game he works.
We shouldn't spend too much time talking about that because when he's actually on a discussion stream, he can speak for himself.
He can elaborate, and we can stop theorizing on exactly what he worked on. But he has significant professional experience in the field of networking, and he specialised in that after working on.
If he wants to be on the team, who are we to stop him?
No, exactly. But yeah, that was So that was the function of this first step diary. It was mainly to just get people.
Well, I'll go down to page 3 here. Is there anything you want to say about this bit?
Yeah. Let me remember what I wrote. I mean. Oh, it was about.
In the dev diary, did you specify how many people are currently on the team, at least of the making of the dev diary? Because I think we're going to get a few more. We're looking at a few more. If you're here in the chat, anyone who's put down on the catalogue, we are looking through it today, and I have DM'd very small. And for the record, you can join the community Discord and go into one of the channels, I think one of the info channels, and you can still contribute to the forum. You can actually still put forward an application to work on the project if you want. If you think you have what it takes.
Also, speaking of the community Discord, I'm just going to post a link in the chat. If anyone could try that link and tell us if it takes you to the community Discord.
Oh, this is a spoiler for something else in the future.
It's a bit of a spoiler, but I felt like it'd be. It is a bit, yeah, but I felt like it might be good to see if it works. Let us know if it doesn't work.
Did you post it in the chat?
It may not work because of the DNS issues, but
I don't know if
it may be dependent on your originality, if it works or not. But it should work.
Did you post it in the
well,
chat? Because I can't see it.
I did post it in the chat. I am just a normie.
I don't know. YouTube chat is terrible, and half the time I can't see what's going on there. So that's one of the reasons I would move to Twitch.
The site is OpenVic.com, OpenVic2.com, and it's all one word.
Careful, you know.
Yeah, OpenVic2.com, and it should take you straight to the Discord.
Maybe it's because you're not a mod. You can't type. I think I'll actually probably ban typing links in the YouTube chat due to the.
Oh yeah, I see that now.
Due to the problem of what we call the sex bots.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Should I? I'm going to type it now. Is it www? Do you want HTTPS or www?
I think just typing in OpenVic2.com works. Works for me.
So we were like frantically looking at that domain name yesterday and realized that like some troll could buy it, so we just
snapped it up and used it for something silly.
Yeah, so basically that's it, right? That's the domain name, because in the near future, and within maybe a few weeks, no pressure on the guy who's going to make it, we will have a website.
Yeah. Well, hopefully in a few weeks. I think a month or two or longer is probably the more run. But I'm looking forward to being able to put the dev diaries up on there instead.
Why was Godot chosen as the engine? Sorry, I just spotted that really interesting question there. Why choose Godot over Unity or Unreal? And there are good reasons, but Spartan.
Let's go into that. Go for it.
All right. So the big reason for Godot, one of them is that it's small, it's already fast. You can already integrate it with C++. Its newest version supports Vulkan out of the box. Its newest version supports Vulkan out of the box. It's still in beta, but it's being worked on. And it's open source. You don't need to deal with any of the crud that Unity and Unreal have. You don't have any closed source proprietary code. So we can modify anything with Godot or compile it ourselves and build everything from scratch if we wanted.
Also, I'd argue that things like Unity, Unreal, there's a lot of monetary implications for those as well.
They're massive as well. So
they're clunky.
You end up you can get as small as I've gotten it down to a 30 megabyte binary for Godot. You don't get that with Unity at all.
Well, we just answered a question directly from the chat. This whole super chat thing didn't really work out. I've had one. We're still going to do this format, right? Where we're going to answer the super chats at the end, even if there's like two. We're going to do it.
I think what we'll do with the super chats is we give them like a proper in full kind of reply to those.
In depth, yeah.
We might just like cherry pick some easy answers on the main chat or something.
I thought having this stream on YouTube would bring in way more viewers than it has. The YouTube streaming has still turned out to be quite shite, I think. So I might not even keep discussion streams on here. Who knows?
Well,
that's a completely different topic. We are still in a
we got
professional
160
discussion.
watching.
It's fine. It's a decent viewer count. I was expecting more though because of the interest with the last video and everything. It's interesting. Maybe YouTube streaming. It's all the algorithm. The thing I hate about streaming on YouTube is the algorithm. It can fuck you over. It can give you loads of viewers based on random little things. Who knows? It giveth and it taketh. Whereas Twitch, you just stream to your followers. And anyway, that's completely irrelevant. We're going to talk about
diary to talk.
Oh yeah, page 4. Have we covered page 3 here?
We haven't covered page 3 yet.
Okay, what is on here?
Page 3 was we talked a little bit at the top about how the purpose of the roles and how some people may feel it's a little premature to have these, but we are to rest assured we are reasonably certain that we do in fact know what we're doing, which is always good. Other than that, it was talking about how open source contribution will work and how anyone can do it, because it is an open source project. That is a meaningful thing. That isn't just, it's open source and forget about anything like that. I can't really talk about any of the technical sides.
Wait, can I just stop you? I just came up, the sad thing is I'm noticing some really good questions in the chat that we wouldn't answer if we just did super chat. So if I could ask someone on the stream to take a note of the really good questions that they see in the chat without a super chat, and we'll still answer them at the end just because they're good questions, like the one from David and the one from Ilya there, probably good. So if someone just take a quick screenshot
That's a
of
good
them, and
call.
we'll do them at the end. Sorry, keep going.
That is a good call. No, but absolutely. The open source nature of it means that obviously anyone can have access to the code. We believe that what we're going to do is we're going to publish the 1.0 under GPL3, open source license, which means that anything we put out there will be open source forever, and anything it will effectively make it so that obviously legal expert is better to talk about this, but none of us are that.
I played the fifth.
Yeah, quite. It basically makes it very tricky to ever get the code or iterations of the code to be not open source, effectively. However, for most of the development period, we're probably going to be operating under MIT just for the flexibility. But GPL3 has a lot of, I suppose, from a platonically, ideologically point of view, it's quite a nice for the people kind of license, so to speak. So we thought it'd be nice if we published under that. Other than that, we also have the hackathon event to talk about.
Yes, I was just going to get onto that. That is one of the things I mentioned in the end of yesterday's video about an upcoming thing that's coming next. And this is in fact coming on Sunday. So what is the hackathon event, guys? What is it?
Yeah, well, the hackathon event is basically a event, so to speak, where anyone will be able to have about a week, I think it's exactly a week actually to the minute, to put together anything that they think could be used or useful, or anything at all to do with any kind of OpenVic-esque project. And I go into detail in the of what that could be in the dev diary, which I do recommend everyone reads if you're interested. And after that week-long period, we'll basically take them all in, take all the submissions in, and basically have a big, long public look through them and see what's useful. There are no requirements as to what languages or what technology you use to produce them. Code it in Excel. I mean, we probably won't be able to use it if it's in Excel, but we'll be impressed.
Wait, code it in Excel? What? You're saying I can even join this?
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you, I don't know, how's your Excel skills, bud?
I can make a little spreadsheet there. I can do this really advanced coding where I can add up some boxes to make a little sum.
I mean, there is that legendary project where that guy made Doom in Excel, so I'm sure you can make a map game in Excel with enough effort. But I would humbly suggest that people don't direct the primary efforts towards Excel programming, and instead perhaps something that we could take more direct inspiration from. And if it's in C++, which is by the way the language we're using, then we might even consider just taking it with some modifications and the developer's permission, of course, and actually using it or taking inspiration or taking parts of it or whatever for the actual OpenVic2 project. And yeah, basically just getting the community involved and getting the community engaged, because I feel like there's a large amount of talented individuals who really just want to get stuck in, and we felt that this would be an excellent way to do that.
Yeah, because it's sort of, if I know anything about this sort of thing, well, it's common sense. So we're still putting together the project. We haven't gotten to the point where we're writing. Well, I think Spartan has put some stuff in the GitHub, but in layman's terms, we haven't begun even writing a bit of code yet. So in order to get people doing that and raise that sort of interest in the project, get people going, get people thinking about code, we're doing this, right? Is that a fair way to say it?
I think so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Striking while the iron is hot, while there's so much interest, seeing what people come up with.
That's the idea.
This is open to the general public, anyone, viewers, followers of the project, and members of the team alike, if they should like to go for it. And it's starting on Sunday, and you can join once again the community Discord. I'm sure a lot of people will talk about it on there and exchange ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'll actually be opening up a specific channels for it. Our own dev team has actually already gotten together, starting to brainstorm. I feel like they definitely plan to potentially get on that as a break for the compiler stuff that they're doing at the moment.
Are we saying the dev team is going to make OpenVic2 in this 1 week for the hackathon, and that's it?
Exactly. That is exactly what we're saying. And that's a promise. No, but in all seriousness, the dev team, I feel, well, at the moment, we're working on laying out exactly what we need to do and our development process and how we're going to prevent this becoming a big mess. Because at the end of the day, this needs to be a really lean, mean machine of a game, and that's basically the whole point of the project, is just to make a much better, so to speak, Vic. And it's not just to get code together for us to help and like give us a boost or anything like that. It's also to get people used to the concept of contributing to an open source and large project that many people can contribute, and also lowering the barriers to entry for that, because with official contributions you obviously need to stick to the language and whatnot, but there are techniques still to be gained and gleaned from people who don't operate in C++, as a lot of people do not use C++. C#, for example, being a significant one, and occasionally other languages. But yeah, it's a good way to engage everyone and lower that bar, hopefully.
I guess engage everyone apart from the artists and the art team, I guess, right?
What?
Patrick?
I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, there's always plenty of other stuff to be getting on with the art, and I think getting a few pieces done is pretty self-explanatory. So it's definitely something that's more useful for the coders. But I'll be sure to have plenty of projects and little things that people can get stuck in with if they're willing to contribute to artwork. Like I said, we're having a meeting this weekend about that as well.
Yeah, it's going to hopefully be quite a successful event.
I think that about covers it for this hackathon thing. Is there anything else that you might like to say about it? Is there a time? Is there a time on Sunday that it starts?
Yeah, there is, noon GMT. That's midday for people who aren't American, I think. So that'll be
12 p.m. GMT, which very hard to work out the time zones.
Midday British time.
Well, I'm trying to work out what that would be. It would only be 1 hour ahead for Central Europe. America, it's going to be just as you're waking up. Well, I don't know when you wake up.
It's about
early
7
in the
a.m.
morning.
East Coast,
Yeah.
and up to 9 on absolute West Coast. So looking like 5 in the morning. So yeah, waking up time for the American.
But it lasts a week. It lasts a week anyway, so that doesn't really matter.
Exactly, and it will close at the exact same time that next week. Hopefully. So yeah, it's going to actually completely take place while I'm on holiday, and I'll be here to start it, and I'll be back again to finish it. So I will probably be a little bit less engaged at that time, but don't worry, there'll be a lot of technical people, both from the team and from the larger community, available and talking a lot. I imagine there'll be a significant amount of discussion about everything to do with the project, not just at the hackathon. But yeah, it's a very active Discord, especially at the moment, and it has been quite active in general, and there's always a lot of very positive conversation. A few trolls every now and then, but that's what we get. That's.
Oh aye.
Par for the course.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I'm keeping track of the questions.
Oh, beautiful, Spartan.
That's very good, thank you. And so that about covers it for that hackathon. What is the next topic?
Well, there is a lot.
that brief sketch set of notes that we just put some topic headers on, and we're like, oh,
it's if we had a topic header.
Well,
if you give me a topic header, I'll introduce it.
I did come up with a good thing to speak about, inspired by your mangling of the name in the intro, so to speak.
The name of the project?
The reason we have chosen OpenVic2, and we're not OpenVictoria 2 or just OpenVic. And that's the same reason expressed twice. And the reason when I believe we're going with OpenVic2, the reason we're choosing Vic over Victoria is because Victoria is theoretically protected by trademark. And Paradox would probably not appreciate us using it. That is completely hypothetical and not a legal statement by any chance. But it's to distance ourselves from the mainline Victoria games in general, because we are making what would be definitely considered by all definitions a different game that is unique and stands on its own. No assets will be used from Victoria, and I believe originally an idea was we'd do something similar to OpenTTD, where we'd pull assets from the main Vic files, but I believe that is more or less a plan that is going out the door, so to speak.
We haven't discussed that.
We haven't discussed that. strictly, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of us are quite against the idea anyway, because it would be, we've got a big art team and we might as well use it. Is my personal
Well, with the art,
opinion.
yeah, we assets that are artistic or digital files. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm losing you a bit there, Spartan, by the way.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, even in this
That-
early stage. Oh, sorry, Spartan, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just coughing.
Oh, yeah.
So even in
worries.
this early stage, as we saw on the video I released yesterday, we have artwork, ideas, and even final things. As in the case of the logo, it might be the final one. We have that artwork. We have that loading screen format potentially with the historical paintings that would work. We could either go for something more advanced with the loading screens. You could come up with your own original artwork. We could use that stuff from Pew Pew where he has the historical paintings with highlighted individual items. But in any case, we have that, and we have the music as well from Catylist. So we're already essentially coming up with our own assets as it is.
And
And
this
we
is
haven't,
before
you know-
we've even put a single line of code down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you give it like a year or two, which is enough time to get the development fully underway and actually deliver large chunks of the software, and there will be a tremendous amount of assets available. I mean, the way it's gone so far, we've had so many people come in for art and sound effects and 3D modeling and so on.
Oh, that's fun. Sound effects is something I was like out for a walk one of these days, and I thought, how are we going to do sound effects?
Well, it's the
Like,
music
maybe it was
and
the sound of my
SFX game.
footsteps, and I was thinking of the retreat sound effect or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no. I believe we've got a few people who've specified their interest to be specifically SFX. I will say that music people are more common, but there
Definitely.
are. Yeah, I mean, I believe at the very least, we can probably find a reasonably affordable, commercializable, but we won't, or distributable rather. We won't need it to necessarily be commercial. We can find a reasonably good resource to pull on, so to speak, so we don't need to make all of our sound effects from scratch, which could be quite time consuming, especially if there are quality products available.
Yeah, and I just
Yeah.
want to say, someone did raise it in the chat just now, and we were just talking about essentially this with quote-unquote legal stuff and the status. All I can say is that the discussions with Paradox are just ongoing. Nothing is final. It all looks really good, and it's ongoing. And that's about it, really.
To be honest, I think that the general view from like all involved is like everyone wants to see projects work together to create things and to make new and beautiful kind of experiences. And whether it's Paradox or us or anyone else, I don't think there's this sense of like malicious. Let's just keep the community down. Let's just have like less games in the market. I think that would be against the spirit of all,
Does your job create beautiful experiences, Joe?
in a manner of speaking.
Anyway, anyway.
We'll move on from that, I believe.
One thing I want to clarify for that question: is there any potential for decompilation? Absolutely not. That would be going on copyright, and we're not allowed to do that, and we're going to avoid that entirely.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
basically out of the question.
Absolutely.
There's not going to be any decompilation, reverse engineering, or anything like that. We're strictly avoiding that to the absolute maximum and effectively banning. I would say that as a legitimate suggestion, because it's so inappropriate. We are building
Yeah.
everything from the ground up in the first
Yep.
instance.
We go so far as if we know that you have decomped Vic2 at all, we're gonna have to keep you from even contributing to the project. We can't have that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've already seen a couple of people who've spoken about that stuff and
Yeah.
done modding effort on it, and it's like they don't make the cut. We're not having them on the team because we can't
Yeah.
be associated with that.
It is a shame, but it's just something we're going to have to stick with, I'm afraid.
Yep.
It's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. Well, there might be arguments for it, but really, it doesn't really,
And also, it's not that big of a deal not being able to decom, because
We won't get anything useful out of it, really.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you're really just trying to go through like assembly instructions, and that's a nightmare.
It's
And
not
just literally write your own code. It's actually easier to just make your own game than try and reverse engineer that, in my
Not
view,
to
anyway.
mention, the principles of the code is also not that difficult. It's more so getting it to be optimized. Will be our own thing
Yes.
anyway.
Yeah, and design features from the ground up in the first iteration of the game, instead of making some expansions and like hamstringing it together to try and get the thing working. If we design something fully from the outset, and we have a lot of flexibility in that, it will be a lot easier in the long run for all involved, and will allow modding and all that goodness down the line.
I think, at least from my perspective, to summarise our own thoughts in terms of the legal stuff, we're all sat here contributing our time. We're putting a lot of work into this project, and I don't think any of us would be putting in as much as we are if we weren't at least reasonably confident that the legal issues wouldn't would be such a big barrier. And as people have said, we've already been speaking to Paradox, so I myself am pretty confident, and I don't want people within the community to be worrying or being too apprehensive about things going wrong. So I think it's something we can have a pretty positive outlook on, but we do need to take the proper precautions and go about things in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can also, if you take a step back from the sort of purely legal standpoint, there's also just the general interests, the interest that all the parties have and all that. So, what does Paradox gain or lose from it? What do we gain or lose from it? And we can argue, I can easily argue how this is a really good thing for Paradox, and it's not anti-Paradox or against Paradox or bad for them that this would happen. We can talk about that in general terms aside from the legal arguments, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I'd say that what Spud said in his video as well, as far as this is a project that is born out of a passion for creating and a passion for Paradox games, and it's not, and by definition, from that perspective, it cannot be anti-Paradox, because how could it be? It's a spiritual successor, if anything, and that is in itself significant praise to Paradox previous work. And as Spud said specifically, it is not healthy to build a project on the basis of anti something or disliking of something.
I mean, I guess I already did state it really, if I do say so myself, well in the video itself. But one of the last voice lines that I put into the video at the last minute when I thought of it was to say that this is a sort of tribute to what Paradox did. They're a tribute to Victoria 2, which is by Paradox. We can even put it like that. Really in favour of that game, and it's something that Paradox did. And it's irrelevant from Victoria 3 and what they're currently doing. Whenever we talk about that, it's like a separate issue.
It's completely removed, yeah. Yeah, utterly. I was very surprised, actually, when Victoria 3 came out, and it was just that different to Vic 2. It's literally a completely different game. It's almost nothing. I mean, it takes the trappings. It's like people who have heard about Victoria 2 made Victoria 3, and that's not necessarily a criticism, right? New isn't necessarily worse or anything. And I'd say that it's almost impossible to compare them for that reason. They're just so different, right? And I have a lot less fun playing Vic 3 and watching Vic 3 stuff than, especially that last thing, actually. I think Vic 3 is a pretty boring game to watch, but I'm sure that in classic PDX fashion, that the game will become excellent over the next couple of years, as I'm sure a lot of people are. But yeah, I think it's just a completely different thing, and it's not really to be compared too much.
Yeah, Joe, what is your status with Victoria 3? What's your experience with Victoria 3, Joe?
Never bought, never played, never will. and not because I have this hatred of Victoria 3 or anything. Personally, I sort of started playing Paradox games many years ago, starting 2008, 2009, when I was getting into Heartsfire 2 back in the day, and I had a great time on them. And for me, the peak Paradox experience, as it were, was Europa 3. I don't like number 4. Victoria 2, of course. Victoria 2 is probably the best. And then actually I had more fun on the multiplayer of Hearts of Iron 3, which is a delicate beast at times, but Hearts of Iron 3 multiplayer with lots of people is exceptional. And for me, it's like the way Paradox has gone in their game directions. Like some of it's kind of nice, and I like some of it, and like the modern features and such. But fundamentally, the game experience has changed too much for me to really enjoy it. I yearn for the sort of older game sort of style, a bit more technical, a bit harder, a bit more detail. I think there's a perception I have of on Paradox games. I'm sure most of you like at least can see it, which is that there's a kind of approach of making it more casual, more accessible, and to me that detracts from the experience. I don't want a user interface that's easy to navigate necessarily. I would rather have a very tight kind of gameplay loop and a lot of really key mechanics and a lot of like numbers spinning around the system and lots of provinces, and a lot of micromanagement and all that. And for many that's just a playstyle difference, but for me, I just prefer the older style and happily will recreate that, as I put it earlier, the game experience, right? That's sort of what we're going for.
Yeah, so I think it's actually very common among many different franchises and companies to have an old guard and then the company doing something different or new and alienating the old guard a little bit, and then this distinction between an old guard and the new people. This is so common.
It was true when I was getting into them at the end of the 2000s. Like, so if I was playing Hearts of Iron 2, the old guard were the Hearts of Iron 1 players, and I did play Vicky 1, so I was technically the old guard for Vicky 1, but Vicky 2 was superior. But it was the same for Europa 2 as well. Europa 2 had a huge old guard fan base because Europa 2 was a lot more deterministic in how the game would play out, like a lot more historical events. So like if you played Spain, like you would have like massive deflation because of currency entering your system. But EU3 made it much more sandboxy. And maybe that's like a way that I don't like the sort of direction it's gone in, making it more sandbox and less linear. And I always liked it to be a bit more linear. Yeah. So to get back on the direct relevant topic to this project, like I said, it's really pro Victoria 2, a tribute to that game. And while Victoria 3 might be, something that drives people towards wanting this or something, or, people that prefer Vic 2 to Vic 3 will obviously like our project more, it's not anti-Vic 3. And I make loads of digs at Victoria 3 and my personal views on it are in separate videos and separate streams. But, it's really not inherently against Victoria 3. And I've said this I said it in both videos, saying it again now. I guess we're really just driving that point home.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. I think this is about the kind of time that we desperately look at the discussions.
Oh, I know what the next topics are. I've been sort of waiting for a point.
Go, Joan. Go.
To take the reins.
Unless Spartan, maybe, or Patrick, anyone else have anything to say about that?
Mm-hmm.
No, I think everything's been said. I agree.
I agree as well. I don't have anything against it.
And also, actually, one person in the chat did say something like, so the development team doesn't know Victoria 3? As if that's relevant. It's you don't have to know anything about Victoria 3 for this. It's nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I would say I have a nominal understanding of Vic 3 and the basic systems, but again, it's not really relevant. Especially, if we're just trying to. You don't actually need to know anything about Victoria 2 to work on this project, because we are literally all we're doing is we're going into Vic 2, we're talking to the people who know their stuff, and we're observing, we're seeing what is there, and we are going to basically replicate it visually, basically, just by observing what we see in our interactions with it, and putting that together in a way that we think is, from a technical standpoint at least, better. Bearing in mind, of course, that the game was made in a 10 to 11 month period in 2011. So if we can't do better, I'd be very surprised.
The person whose comment I actually mentioned has replied again, and he says, so Vic 3 made no improvements whatsoever. They are similar games, Of course, you need to know about your competitor. That last word there is nothing to do with what our project is. Competitor? No.
Nothing. We're not a competitor. We're not seeking to
Of
compete
the
with Paradox
funds
in any way.
and resources and intention to compete with what is effectively now a AAA game dev company. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Not going to work.
This is an open source project. You know, you
Mhm.
can only be a competitor if you are competing for people's money, that you are actually shipping a product that people are buying. We aren't shipping a product to sell to people. We are making an open source project that will be moddable and extendable by anyone in the world. So they will be freely able to take our code, compile it, build it how they like. I mean, that's a gift to the modding community. I mean, at a stretch, you could call this entire project just an extended modding tool for Victoria 2. You know? Just something to give the community.
It's functionally also an indie project as well, because it's not like we're a big business.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I do think, though, that comment does touch on something which is improvements to Vic 2, in that...
Oh, yeah, this topic.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite a chunky one. In that he or she says that the topic, that so Vic 3 made no improvements. Of course it did, especially in the graphics department. And I would say that the Vic 3 and Vic 2 UIs are bad for entirely different reasons in every possible way, I'd say. But I would also like to address the whole idea of improvements on Vic 2, in that we are replicating Vic 2 exactly, or more or less, as close as we can get it, reasonably. There are some things that just are so bizarre that programming them in, it's just insanity. Like, that would just be insane to do that. And there are some things we can't do, like, we're not going to be able to program the exact AI that is janky in the exact same ways, because we don't have access to the code behind that. And observing the AI for hours and hours and hours on end to find all of the weird things it does, just so we can replicate it. I mean, if we wanted to make a
doable.
AI,
it's doable.
Yeah, it's doable, but if we wanted to make an AI, which of course we do, and we wanted to make it not particularly good, or slightly janky, then all we'd do, we wouldn't spend time and effort and dozens of hours of man hours researching it and figuring out how to make it bad. We just wouldn't spend a particularly long amount of time on it, I think. We'd just make it functional. But I do think that is a topic, specifically the AI, that we do need to address, because that will be...
You opened the can of worms, and then inside the can of worms, you found another can of worms, and you decided
exactly. Yeah, I just love opening cans, man.
There are a lot of different aspects to this AI. AI is one of the many. I think it might even be the key.
AI is a topic that is notorious for having uneducated takes on. I have worked on AI. Lots of people. I think, Spartan, you've worked directly on AI yourself as well in some capacity. Right, so when people talk about AI, they talk about different things. At a high level, it can be stuff like decision trees and state engines or state machines. And at another sort of level, which is common, is like machine learning. So I see a comment on like Chat GPT, like that's a machine learning, probably a deep learning model, a very deep learning model.
Yeah, and there's many AI systems that will take parts of that concept. Usually you may also have goal-oriented with weights and biases. It isn't necessarily machine learning, but it becomes kind of a human-generated version. Or human-written version.
But yeah, these things we call AI, I mean, really, they're
machine intelligence. They're not machine intelligence even. It's like they're not intelligent. So
yeah, they don't have their own sort of sense of autonomy and consciousness that a human has. They don't make their own decisions. They are programmed to do things.
Yeah.
So a state machine is a flow of commands in a certain order that looks at the world or the state of what is going on, and then it can change state to do something else. So it's like, AI of a country looks at a war situation and it goes, okay, at war, therefore going to look at where troops are, where enemy troops, move troops to enemy troops. It's like that kind of like linear kind of thinking. Machine learning, which we are not doing. We're not doing machine learning, okay? It's not happening. And it was suggested to me earlier, and I immediately realized within about 2 seconds I'm suggesting that a machine learning algorithm to put an AI together would be extremely vulnerable to humans because, well, what would happen? You would train an AI system against what? Other AI, maybe humans, and then it would learn certain patterns. But all you're doing is just redefining the patterns in which it plays. And humans are inherently stochastic. And the way humans learn is like a genetic algorithm. So what we do is we can randomize, we can change things, we can take a different approach, and we can intelligently work out like weaknesses in the AI, right? So if you have a machine learning algorithm, you sort of like prescript it in a certain way against a certain level of player base or against, AI players. And so it will never be able to compete with human players. And for that reason, we'll always be playing multiplayer games. And that's why a big part of this experience that we're trying to make is going to be so multiplayer focused. I think we are looking at a single player mode to support it, but I think most of our real heart will be in the multiplayer, getting the net code.
Yeah. One thing I want to say on that, in regards to AI as well, one, given that we have it open source as well, anybody could make their own AI additions to the system, so they could write their own if they have any understanding of that. The other thing is, in the best of cases, what you could maybe do is once you have a figured out meta, you basically write the AI to try and follow that meta as best as possible, and you probably get decent enough behavior most of the time.
Most of the time, and then people still complain because it's not a perfect, unfallible AI that has never been tried.
There's going to be a lot of planning as to how much AI gets done during the project, how much is up to modders after, how much is people contributing from the side, like Spartan just said. We're still yet to have those discussions, right?
It's a long way out, to be honest.
There are a ridiculous amount of discussions to happen. That we could literally be in a voice chat for a week and not get everything. That's it. In fact, we're probably longer than that. So like a couple weeks, we'd never be able to thread every single thing out and figure every single thing out.
We've been in chats for weeks and we still don't have the whole compiler figured out.
I mean, yeah. So when we say we haven't discussed something, it's not because our state of development is immature, although it obviously is early days. It's because it's impossible to discuss everything.
Compiler, we barely know her.
Exactly.
To be honest, I'd say we've discussed like most game concepts at some point. We've pretty much discussed anything that's going to be posted in the chat. Every idea that you guys come up with is probably being discussed in some form, either by ourselves in the dev team or by people on the community server. And the thing to remember with it,
with the dev team reading,
it's with the dev team reading it and replying to them. So if you go on the community server, which I do recommend, we will actually reply to you, and I can give pretty good in-depth answers on the reasoning behind things. When it comes down to it, I mean, we have to build functionality in a way that works and is well documented. And so software code is going to lag very far behind. I mean, and in front of the software code, we've still got to make decisions on what kind of code to write. Like that is yet to be made. So yeah, we haven't made decisions on a lot of core game features because there are so many, and you've almost got to have like a preliminary discussion to even know what the decisions are available. So yeah, it's an ongoing work in progress. One thing I would say is we've got some like core requirements down. So I think something we haven't mentioned, which is kind of key, is like, well, when you actually write the code then? Well, we're going to write codes 5th of February onwards. That's our first dev cycle. And we're going to do a monthly, or really a 4-week dev cycle from then. So 4-week sprints. So 5th of February is when we start actual development work. And as we get more dev work underway, we'll find more programmers willing to contribute, because it's really hard starting a project, and it's really important to start the project well. So it can seem at times, I think, to people who aren't experienced with software, we're dragging our feet a little, but that's just simply not true. There is so much work behind the scenes that we just can't show you, that we've got locked away in like file systems and that, where we've got like planning documents, requirement documents. Like I've written like how many words of documentation at this point? Just in the tens of thousands,
pages, definitely
pages and pages, just on and on. Like I was onboarding someone into the project yesterday, and I was like, read this 5K proposal, okay, so you can get a lowdown on like how the project's going to run. Now here, read this 3.6K document that's not finished yet, and that'll give you a brief introduction into what you're going to be doing on this project. And that's like
God.
30 pages of documentation just to read. And this is stuff we put together in like the first week or so. So like we've got a solid kind of rough, like, I'd say it's a solid and it's rough. It's kind of like we've got the core, like the real core idea, like well thought out of like we want to recreate the Victoria 2 game experience. The detail of exactly how we implement every software functionality, that takes a lot of time. It's like Catylist getting into cans inside cans inside cans inside cans inside
yeah,
cans,
literally. We could. That's why this discussion stream is going to be so prone to these ridiculously long rants, like this one, for example, about how
here it's fine.
hard
That's
it
part
is
of
to
it.
make anything.
It's fine.
Why not? So I'm seeing some discussion in terms of like, why not publicize these documents, or like you've got nothing. Well, we have a compiled software project that's working, and we have defined requirements that are explicitly written with test methods, acceptance criteria. We have multiple discords. We've got infrastructure in place. We have a project schedule and task inform. We've got a lot of the essential key ingredients for a project. And I'm coming from a project management perspective, someone who works on the entire product lifecycle of software. What we're doing is completely in line with how software is actually designed in the real world, not some casual program that you quickly write as a script in the background. So we're firmly in the like requirements stage of software. Any of you familiar with a waterfall model, you know exactly what I mean. Or even if you're familiar with an agile model, like we're going to be agile in terms of the way we do cycles. But what we're going at is we have to develop requirements, software requirements, right? We turn those requirements into a software design. So we turn what we say we're going to make into a diagram of how it looks in terms of its code. So it's documented, it's clean. We then have developers write the actual code and execute the code to show that it works. And then we have testers test that code to make sure it works and then document what requirements that we originally started with have passed the tests. And what that does is it helps define a V diagram that we can sign off. And this is getting into weeds with engineering, but in effect, we are taking an approach where we are running a project, as one person put it really well, and it's like kind of sarky comment, which I kind of liked actually. It kind of a bit of an ego boost. They said that we were LARPing like a corporation in the sense that we were defining like very specific processes. And it's lots of buzzwords. Hope it's all not all talk and you succeed. Well, the thing is, the way to temper the attitude of hearing buzzwords is if you were to Google software lifecycle or software product lifecycle, you will see masses of Google results saying exactly what I've just said. And this is because we've come from backgrounds of software engineering experience where we have worked for years as actual software engineers. I had to delay talking to Spudgun coming onto the stream and actually planning it because I was at work doing software engineering for real. So we come from a place of the real experience where we have had to work on projects much, much bigger than this. So we know exactly all the pitfalls that go into projects like this. And the biggest pitfall for any software project is starting too quickly and just haphazardly getting a nice thing together that looks good in the moment, sort of goes well for a few months, and then the problems are just compounded. You've got this spaghetti, that you just cannot. It's like those Christmas lights you like throw away in a cupboard and they're just like this tangled ball. It's like taking that apart is just an endless nightmare. And unless you do it properly, you plan it out, you document it, you have requirements traceability through the project is simply not going to succeed. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on the project lifecycle.
That's great. Someone just asked, what projects have you worked on?
I've worked, as I said earlier, I cut my teeth, so to speak, on a 10-figure budget aerospace program. How many numbers? How much money is 10 figures?
I don't even know. 6 is a million.
One,
it's in the
3,
billions.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is a billion.
Yeah. So I worked on a program that was had a budget of more than £1 billion, and a lot of the software methodology that I learned in terms of managing requirements and running software processes, I have effectively taken from lessons learned working on a project like that, where I've been able to discard things that didn't work in terms of requirements management and integrate things that did. So we have, effectively industry standard experience in running these kinds of projects. And I think it's that aspect that gives us a lot of confidence that our approach is the right one. That rushing into this, blundering through like a bunch of college kids, it's just simply, it's not going to work. It's not going to cut it. And the project will fail. And everyone will say, see, I told you so. You couldn't do it. But if we take a slow, measured approach, then it will,
Yeah, it's not particularly glamorous, the slow, measured approach. But the point is, a messy development process will end up with a messy product at the end of the day, always. Or a product with a ridiculous backlog of issues to fix. And that is something we're very determined to not happen, because then what's the point? Just go play Victoria 2, because it'll be just as bad as far as stability and spaghetti code. And it's not really avoidable. If we want to make it a lean, very, very well put together product that people can easily, because obviously the leaner it is and the better it made it is, equals people being significantly more able to derivate off of it and to actually make their own versions of it, because it's open source. And that extends to modding to an extent as well. And it certainly extends to our ability to add modability into the actual product itself. And therefore, we really, really can't avoid something like this. And I've seen a few people in the past and more recently roll their eyes at the whole structuring the development process so rigidly. But it just does have to be done. It's not avoidable.
The thing on that is, like, we get so many suggestions about like features we should add, or like little quality of life improvements that we can add to it. Well, if you go across if you try to build a game in this like quick, haphazard fashion, you can't maintain the code, you can't adapt the code. So you get to a point where adding features becomes prohibitively expensive, because it's spaghetti. You've got to figure out how to connect something in, and you've got to connect this new feature into like 100 different places. But if you do the project properly and it's clean, you already know all the software interfaces where a component has to link together, and the way they're organized and structured leads to an easy implementation. You can create a new feature and effectively slot it in, because you've predetermined all the points where it's going to work and interact with the program.
Anybody can come by and contribute as well, and it adds more without creating a unnecessary bloat on anybody's mind.
Mm-hmm. Correct, 100%. I think the definitive thing I would say to people who have worked on open source projects before and are skeptical of our approach is that this is not going to work at all like other open source projects, because they'll often be relying on a single core dev that is doing most of the work, and the people coming and going out the door with comments here and there. And of course, we'll have quite a few of those people who just contribute one or big or small thing, or a small series of things, and then go and do other things, and that's absolutely fine. However, those projects often rely on both the patience and abilities of those single dev, or if it's a larger project, they rely on being small enough that a wave of enthusiasm can just quickly hammer out the project. And neither of those approaches is going to work here. So we have no real alternative. Like, it just won't get done any other way. And for that reason, we have to go with this more regimented.
And something really important to keep in mind with all of us here, every one of us here, right? All of us have full-time jobs and other responsibilities in our lives. Like, this is effectively, modding time on the side. So, the idea of us delivering shipping product, it's not going to happen in like a week or two. Like, working full-time in the week, how much time do you guys have, after work? It's probably not a huge amount, not as much as you'd like. And then imagine spending, most of that time working on a project like this. I mean, you've got a good amount of hours you could use, but people like me, we got family responsibilities on the way, So the project is naturally going to be a little slower because of that as well. Hopefully we can build up a team that is numerous enough, skilled enough that will be able to all contribute in a sort of like, part-time fashion, and then we'll just slowly, iteratively build up this software functionality into a grander sort of product over time. One thing I would like to do is like get these sort of like agile sprints going. I've worked like pretty much a waterfall project in the past, and I've worked like a full agile scrum project in the past, so I know the sort of extremes of software methodology. And really what I have in my mind is, we're starting development work in like a week formally, right? And we've got some basic requirements of really basic functionality. And the first iteration will be stuff like get an application running, run the game, right? And the next requirement is like have a main menu, put some UI elements on it, right? Really like super basic stuff. But something I think that people who don't do software don't consider, it's like every UI element has to be like drawn up, placed on a screen, placed in multiple screens sometimes. There has to be underlying software methods that link to that UI element that then potentially link to other methods and data structures in the program. So you end up with this like really convoluted set of software to do really, really simple things. Like we were talking about like how you'd set the settings, like something really banal like that, where you just want to change your resolution, change the graphic settings. It's like you've got to have a settings file. You've got to have default settings in the code. You've got to then have the option to save those settings as a text file that holds these settings available to the user. You've then got to have software functionality that allows, button presses on certain things, sliders, all these different kind of UI elements. Each one of those things has to be explicitly programmed and then tested as well to make sure it works and it doesn't like screw the game up, or the UI element sort of breaks. It's like the sheer complexity.
The Victoria 2 settings, the borderless thing doesn't work properly. You have to set it in your text file yourself, right? And there's also something else broken about it. Just the fact that the music is blaring in the loading screen and all that. The music that's going to blare is going to be Catylist's piece.
We're going to fix those. We're not going to have my music be blaring or anything like that. And I would say that what you heard at the beginning of this stream was the opening theme to OpenVic2, hopefully, unless I decide I hate it and ditch it entirely. But that is the unproduced version, I should say. So although it may sound pretty good, it is not the final version, and we will in fact be using some really quite nice, I've looked at it, I got to be honest, some really quite good kit to produce that. It's the kind of thing that you'd expect film composers to use. Definitely that kind of level we're talking at as far as just access to the libraries and VSTs.
The London Symphony Orchestra.
Actually, I got to be honest, the BBC worked with them to make a VST. I got to be honest, me and the team that are doing that looked at it and were like, this is not particularly good.
Anyway, that said, even the unproduced piece by Catylist, the two that he's made so far and published, they're on his SoundCloud that I've linked in the description to check them out again. Yeah, very good so far. They'll sound even better down the line when we get even better. But what we were just talking about with all these, the time frame and what Joe was just saying is exactly what I was thinking of talking about, which is the thing I'm going to put on the screen right now. I brought this up in the video. This is Johan Anderson, producer of Victoria 2.
Oh yeah, this white pilling comment.
When he said how long Victoria 2 took to make itself. And based on this comment, and based on the amount of people we have in the team, and the time that they can commit, which by the way, we absolutely just, they've all got full-time jobs and stuff. It's absolutely amazing that they can do this in their free time, and we thank them. Absolutely so grateful for that. But we can sort of come up with some vague calculations as to how long the project can take based on this that are very, very, what would we call it? Just
loose,
yeah.
Yes,
and not
I would say so.
Final by any stretch of the imagination. But it helps give some context.
We ran the numbers. So me and Yorian, who's one of the devs on the team, we ran the numbers for this, and we calculated it out to roughly 18,000 hours. So 18,000 man hours is the time that they've sort of specified there. And we broke that down over our team, which at the time was a team of 25, which is now bigger than that. So these numbers will change. We worked out that if each person on the team put in, I think it was like 30 hours a month, we could do it in 2 years comfortably.
Mhm.
I think it was that, and
Mhm.
realistically, we can have more people than that, and people are going to put more hours in, because 30 hours a month is not a huge amount for the most dedicated people. You smooth them out, it's certainly realistically achievable, and we aren't bound to something like 2 years. But every new project is always like, oh yeah, what's the 2-year number for it? But realistically, I can see this taking a number of years. We don't know exactly how long it's going to be, but we have a team that's expanding ever more right now. When we get the ability for public members to contribute sort of like updates to it, it'll probably go a bit faster than that. But yeah, you're not going to have a product within like a year or so. Like if we do, like Jesus, I take it all back, But
that would be awkward, because I've said 2 years at minimum in the past.
At minimum is great way of summing up the schedule. How do you guys feel about that? Like 2 years minimum is like our basic, rough, undefined schedule sort of plan.
It sounds very realistic, and just the opposite of getting your hopes up too early. Like I said in the video, Redditors might say, oh well, this is all great, but it's over enthusiastic, it'll never happen. The 2 years plus is just really realistic and sensible.
I would love to I just love how just now you said people paused and then upgraded to Redditors.
Downgraded.
Or specified. You're like, people have said, Redditors have said. Sorry, it just tickled me. But yeah, no, Spartan, what do you think about that as a time frame as lead dev?
I think it's reasonable. At least 2 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking on behalf of the artwork as well, I think 2 years is more than reasonable enough for us. Anything beyond that is going to just be extra time that we can spend to make the game look as good as possible. So within 2 year time, I'm not only confident we'd have all the artwork done, but that we could have OpenVic2 even rivaling Vic 3 in terms of aesthetic appearance, while staying true. I mean, we're not going to have custom railroads and animated dolphin models, but we might have a very high detailed map with lots of really great 3D models.
We can't set our sights too high.
Well, yeah, and I would say that of course graphically we do have to at least somewhat have an option perhaps to turn on the more Vic 2 for the old schoolers who are going to be back in my day, Vic 2, 2011 game and whatnot, graphics wise. But those are all definitely discussions we're going to have. As far as the music team, I don't know. I've already had to think about ways to occupy our time past the 1 year, because we could probably get like quite a lot of music. I mean, we've already got 2 pieces that are in production. And that's quite significant progress. So what we might do is we might have some music files that we don't actually use in the game, but they're in the files, so people and modders can use them themselves. And that was an idea I had, perhaps, that we could do, because or we could just get even more granular, and we could go into world music, perhaps, which something actually I would really like to talk about at some point in more detail is the fact that, to my knowledge, Vic 2, from a world music perspective, considering it's a world map, is ridiculously underperforming in how everything is a romantic European Western piece, in the more or less in the soundtrack, and definitely the most iconic tracks for sure. So it'd be good if we could mix some more global ones in there.
When you install a Victoria 2 mod and it has custom music, that is always the biggest thing in the mod, and it always takes up the most space. So music, maybe, is it something that takes up the most space in a game? In an old game like this, it doesn't have that much of a file size anyway.
Yeah, well, if we used MP3s at a reasonable compression, as in like pretty decent quality, I'd say each file can take up as much as 10 to 15 megabytes, which isn't insignificant at all. So we might have options, especially for that extra stuff that isn't used in the base game. We might have options to download that, or we might
install extra bits.
separately installed music packs, perhaps. But I mean, to be honest, everyone in the music industry that I've talked to, and everyone in music education that I've talked to, really likes to talk about compression quality and stuff. But I gotta be honest, the difference isn't that noticeable compared to the file size. A 3 megabyte file and a 15 megabyte file. Maybe the 15 megabyte file sounds 10% better. So it's all a value judgment as far as that's concerned. But yeah, it's definitely not gonna. That would definitely. I would definitely get a few unhappy devs knocking at my door if the music was taking up 75% of the file size, as they've, so carefully tried to make the program lean as possible, and then I come in and ruin it by making everyone download my album with the Vic2 game. But of course, we're going to probably have. I've already got actually some other composers perhaps involved, and if you are a composer, absolutely. Feel free to join the public Discord and put yourself down. That does lead on to something else I'd like to talk about, but I've talked for enough already. So
one thing I wanted to bring up, well, related to the topic of how long the project might take, and I don't know if I can word this correctly, being all clumsily non-technical, but someone in my comments raised something, and it's been raised a lot, and that is getting functional things out there that you can load up and do early in the project, along the way, things to show for the project, even just opening up a map and clicking on a few states. Like someone on the community Discord posted a little thing where they made that in 2 weeks, where there's a very basic map and they can click on states.
That was really cute. I really liked that. It was so basic, but it had heart. It had soul with a V.
Yeah, that's why it's gotten downloaded. Downloaded. That's why it got downvoted when I raised it on the current Reddit thread about this.
Oh man, that's
someone was saying the project. Someone said, the project will never happen, and I said someone made this in 2 weeks. You can click on states. But anyway, what about that general topic of getting something?
I would really like to comment on that first. So what we're getting at is, what we want is a piece of software that runs, that works, that you can interact with, right? So you can work out all the bugs and the kinks in the program. Because, I mean, it's a great line from a team lead I had on one of these big projects. It was like, yeah, because every software developer writes the perfect code first time, right? Every time, there's never any bugs. And then it's like, at the time I was thinking like every project I've ever written is like my first iteration of the code when I don't really know what I'm doing. It's like literally like 20 bugs in it. It's like just inevitable, you get better as you get on. But the point is, if we run this project, and I picked up on a comment that was like, oh, you can't use Agile because there's a lot of people on the team. Well, I mean, you probably don't have much industry experience, because there is such a thing as scaled Agile, which can apply to high-level safety integrity programs. Safety integrity level programs, where there is considerable control over every aspect of the program, and teams have been run up to 2,000 people taking part in those programs. So that's like the highest level of software rigor, and they're still running Scrum, like literal Scrum, on those, and they just basically break up the software into lots of little groups if you need to. So in terms of how we deliver that iterative software capability, it's like we have a 4-week period of time, which is a sprint. In that sprint, we will take a batch of requirements that we've written, so software requirements. We will hand that to the developer team. The developer team will then implement those requirements as software. They will conduct design as appropriate, and then software from that design. There will then be shipped software that is ready to be tested. That software will be tested to ensure that it works. If it doesn't work, or little things are found, bugs will be raised and fed back immediately to the dev team to repair. Or maybe they get added to a bugs database where we prioritize and deprioritize as we need to. The point is, there's a continual churn of this software process. So every month you have a product at the end. When the month expires, you have a build of the game that has a few functions that have been developed that you can run. And then you go into the next cycle.
Yeah. And on the Reddit thing as well, as far as getting things out there, that's partly what the hackathon is for. Leading back to that is to satiate.
No, wait. That's nothing. The overall thing I was talking about here isn't to do with a Reddit criticism. It is someone actually, I think, I posted it in the development Discord, constructively saying it's a good idea to get things out early that people can see.
That is no, but that's what I was leading on to in the fact that
yeah, no bother, go ahead.
The hackathon is somewhat supposed to scratch that itch, so to speak, as far as getting something out and seeing what can be done and having a few tech of something very basic. I mean, I might eat my words with the very basic, but you know, we can have a friendly, competitive atmosphere about it and see what people could come up with. We're not expecting super well developed anything, you know, just getting results quickly. But that is a thing that the dev team and myself have been slightly worried about, is not having too much to show, because obviously a lot of it is back-end stuff that isn't very flashy. But it's just going to have to be something that we're going to have to stick out. We're just going to have to hunker down and just work as we need to, and work in the way that we know is the best. And when we have results for people, hopefully they will look extremely robust. And that's really all we can particularly do in that respect. Yeah, does anyone else have anything to say on that?
Well, I guess not.
Yeah, because I also wanted to talk about, because leading on from what I was going to tangent into, but obviously, you know, realised that was going to happen, was the whole coming from the music thing of, we've had a lot of composers come in and talk about getting involved in the project. And what I think is important to stress is that just if you don't get put into the main team, does not mean at all that you can't contribute. In fact, your ability to contribute is almost unchanged by not being in the team, because you will always be able to contribute in an open source manner. And if you're a composer, for example, or an artist, and you would like to contribute, you can just find yourself a dev who needs an artist or a composer, and you will be able to potentially insert your own stuff into the game. And at the very least, at some point in the mid future, whenever the 1.0 is released in the mid to far future, be able to actually have a mod even, and obviously there's nothing that we have no say in that, you know. And if it's really good, then I might come talking to you about it, and maybe we can have a discussion. But that is generally how the whole model for contributing to the project will actually take place, is that you can do it. You can just do it, right? And if it's good, then we're not going to argue with that, right? It's really, you know, results speak for themselves, and if you get them, then we'll 100% be incorporating it. It's almost inevitability, right? We're here to make the best product we can, right? And that is the only real goal we have, is just doing the best job that we can. And yeah, and if you're part of that, then that's great.
Quickfire question: will it work on Mac OS?
We definitely will have it work on Linux, and definitely on Windows, purely because a lot of our devs work on those. And if they don't, then that does paralyze some of our dev team. Personally, I'm speaking from a personal perspective, and perhaps Joe and Spartan would be good to chime in at some point. It would be nice to have a Mac support, but the conversation I've seen has definitely been Windows, definitely Linux, Mac maybe. But Spartan and Joe, you probably have way more to say on that.
On that, I can specifically say in the least, as long as we compile our extensions to Mac, Godot supports Mac native. We can do that. We could even technically, if you could actually get a system with our simulation running, you could put it on an Android phone or an iOS or on the web.
No.
Oh yeah, we have that.
If you're feeling crazy,
discussion.
It's a mobile game.
So yeah, we could theoretically have the game operate entirely in the browser.
It's a browser game. Worse, no.
If we could put it on. One of my mates said you could put it on Friv, but I'm not sure that would be the most stable.
Put it on
iteration.
your Samsung smart fridge.
Exactly.
No.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just
Newgrounds.
the magic of Godot, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Not to mention, cool thing about Godot is that in sometime in the future it'll come to Xbox and PlayStation as well.
Victoria for Xbox and PlayStation.
Well,
Oh my God, you can
if
go
that
out and
happens,
sync on
if we do
console.
that, then we're really competing with Paradox. So be careful there.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, to be
yeah.
fair, you have to pay for that anyway because you have to license for PlayStation.
That was a dig against Paradox because they're making their games work for console.
Oh yeah,
Really?
Stellaris console.
Oh, man,
Stellaris
that-
console.
Yes, my Vic2 project on Xbox.
Yeah.
Crusader Kings
I mean-
3, I think, is on console now.
Stellaris is also
It
on
is, yeah.
console.
It's on
To
Game
be
Pass.
fair, the one console I can think of that would actually kind of work aside from the Steam Deck would be the Nintendo Switch.
Get it on the
yeah,
Nintendo
maybe.
DS. Touchscreen
Exactly.
compatibility, I can see that.
We need Wii support, guys. We need the Wii.
We had a great question come in the chat. Why not contribute to Alice instead of making a new project? That being Project Alice, I believe, which is made by Schombert.
Is that? I
Correct
thought
me
it was
if I'm
just
wrong.
Open V2.
Wait,
I thought that was
Why
just Open
is
V2.
that? Has he called it Alice or something? What's that?
He wanted to call it Project Alice, so I'm sure that's what was meant there. But correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, that is a good question to talk about anyway.
I would like to say the
yeah, it's a very
pre-prepared
good
line
question.
for that, if possible. Because first of all, there's a lot of reasons why we're not doing that. Primary problem, I'd say, is that the Project Alice or OpenV2 is extremely impressive from a technical standpoint and very, very good results, especially when not even considering that it was made by one guy, right? However, the problem is that it was made as that. It was made by one guy for one guy. It is a personal passion project. And those are very difficult to scale up because they aren't made initially with that in mind, with a large team and all this coordination in mind, and it would require weeks and weeks and potentially months and months of working and reworking and documentation to basically incorporate that into a product.
In some simple terms, you would actually have to start by reverse engineering that rather than Victoria 2.
Yes.
Great way to put it.
Yeah, it would be tricky, really tricky.
One other thing with that too is the fact that that whole thing, those type of when you start making a project that's built basically from the ground up to be only compiled, you don't have any like framework even that you're really using. Like maybe you use SDL, maybe you use SFML or something like that. Without a game engine, it can be a pain in the ass, and you have to test every little detail and the cross-platform compatibility, which can be a nightmare.
Ultimately, I see it as a project that looks great on the surface, but would need considerable development work to get to a usable state. It's this really weird position where it's simultaneously something we sort of like praise but can't like get behind as something to extend.
Yeah.
Because and one of the problems is that the code is not written in a way that is easily maintainable and readable. So because of that, it's difficult to extend for the average developer. So what you have is effectively a games code that is put together in a way that only one person can really understand intuitively. And any one of us could, if we spent the time and effort, we could learn and understand how that code worked. But the thing is that code should be easily readable by the average developer, who's not necessarily going to be an absolute genius as well. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like my code is pretty simple when I write it. And the reason why isn't because, I'm dumb, really. It's because I need other people to be able to read and understand that code very quickly so that they can make quick adjustments to it. And so that, I think, is something really fundamental with the OpenV2 project. It's almost like a tragic aspect of it because the potential within it is so high. And the developer behind it, Schombert, has my absolute compliments to his technical skill, because the fact that he did that without an engine is like really great. But then the fact that he did it without an engine is it makes it very difficult to develop on in the long term. So it's like a swings and roundabouts thing. Like you could develop that, you could extend that if you wanted, but like it would have to continue that march forward as a one-man band in effect.
Hmm.
One other thing I want to add to that as well, the rendering and even to an extent the networking is not going to be where the performance problems lie. So a game engine is not a problem to use for this type of project. So so avoiding it is also not exactly, I would say, developmental smartest move especially for a team.
And that's because a game engine comes with so much functionality sort of pre-equipped, as it were. You don't have to spend time stressing out over the game engine. You can focus on the actual gameplay and things that work.
Mhm.
Not to mention that you would be kind of repeating the same problem with Clausewitz, where your UI stuff has bad scaling or just doesn't scale at all functionally.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that problem will come back up because you have to manage that yourself. And look at how long Clausewitz has been a nightmare with its UI scaling. We're just repeating that problem if you don't go with the engine.
Yeah, ultimately, I think things need to be as modular as possible. I think that's the overall intention and sort of design ethos for the game, really, is for things to be as customizable, moddable, but also as functional as possible. So making sure that there's room to build on, room to expand on, and that everything is tweakable, moddable, and editable is really key to things. So I think
Certainly
going
if
for
you're
a
a
game
dev.
engine for that reason, yeah.
It's a really impressive product, but we can see a lot of issues basically. Look, to just wrap up the whole topic, it's a really impressive product that is extremely good results, and Schomburg himself is a very, very talented programmer. However, we just can't use it really. It's just not going to work, and that's a shame. That's a shame. It really would have been really good to build on it and we will take inspiration and we will definitely look into it. That's something that we're committed. We plan to indeed use it as a resource, especially as to fall back on if we're struggling for a solution to a particular problem.
I'm sure Schomburg would feel very happy about that.
Well, yeah, because it is definitely we definitely plan to do that. It would make sense. It wouldn't make sense not to be honest. We can use every resource we have available to us, manpower, libraries, otherwise, right? Anything we can use, we will use, of course. Anything that's useful, we will use.
It is crazy how things are already moving away from what I was talking about in the first video. Because I highlighted Schomburg's work front and center, made it the whole payoff of the video to see. Because for people who hadn't seen it before and who like Victoria 2, it's actually crazy to see that. And it was the front and center. It's like, oh my god, we already have this, we're already halfway there. That was my mindset when I first saw it.
Yeah.
So things have just gone so different from there.
And the thing is, if you're non-technical and you don't get the software side of it and know how much stuff is under the hood, it's like seeing like the frame of a car and you're like, oh, that looks like a nice car, and then you don't realize you've got to build the engine yourself by hand, and you've got to like forge the parts for it as well. It's like that's probably a good analogy for it, because the amount of robust testing you have to do on games before you can hand them to people to play. Like, we would love to get out to everyone who is watching this, an alpha copy or a beta copy, which we'll definitely do. It will happen at some point. We will be able to get that out. But we're not going to do that for a long time. And one of the reasons why is we've got to robustly test all the functionality before we get it to that state. We don't want to just have something that's bug ridden,
I think in the meantime, though, it's a really great proof of concept. And I know for me especially, it was really motivating, when I signed up to see that there was some potential weight in the project. You mean I don't come from a software coding, whatever technical experience background like you guys do. So for me, I wasn't really sure to what extent things were possible and how those things would look. But seeing what Schomburg put together was something that I think really motivated me to know that this project had legs and could go somewhere. And the fact that we're already looking at iterating on that is really inspiring in terms of confidence and where the project can go in the future.
Yep, perfectly said. Now, I think Matt might be the point to start looking at the questions in the super chats and whatnot, unless anyone has anything else to say for that.
I think so. That is. I was going to bring that up myself actually in a few minutes. But I think that's a good place to.
Yeah.
I think most of our things have been summarised.
I was
Put
just gonna
all
say,
the-
make sure you like and subscribe.
Oh yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Absolutely. And watch all of the videos, especially if they're OpenVic2 related.
Like,
Oh,
Sure,
yeah.
Spoken will make
subscribe.
many,
I've got-
many videos.
I've got a real Victoria 2 video coming upcoming Friday anyway, so it's all been about Open Victoria 2 for a while, but now I'm getting back to a Great War. Anyway, so first of all, we go back to the super chats. Andrew Jackson for $2.99 Australian dollars, thank you, says, please just make your own game based around Victoria 2. I mean, he's probably just stating, he wants what we're making, I guess.
Yeah, literally.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Question done. Like, yeah, that's what we're doing.
Easy peasy. Yes, one
Yeah.
one answer, one word answer.
And Raphael, thank you very much for the $5 Canadian. Is there a roadmap of features to implement that are not in the original game? That is a whole topic for an entire stream as well, isn't it? I mean, that's
Yeah,
huge.
probably
Yeah.
that is big. I'll say no. There is not a roadmap, but the topic of extra features is a significant rabbit hole. But I'll summarize it in a single sentence, in that we're focusing on performance stuff, no actual gameplay.
The simple answer to the question is what I said in the follow-up video, which is, avoiding the feature creep. The vision of the project is to recreate what is there in terms of mechanics while improving the technical side. But there's obviously going to be places where it might be absolutely imperative to make something different. Things might come up. Things might be impossible to recreate. It's also going to be the guesswork. So the simple answer is there, but then when things actually get going, there's going to be a lot of answers to a lot of different questions, right?
Yeah.
I will say, in addition to that as well, is that it's the same in terms of the art development. But what I am looking at doing is, as soon as we're done with, updating, rescaling, retooling, redesigning the base UI and design elements for OpenVic2, we want to go on at looking at different visual customization options. So that is something that I already sort of have outlined in my own sort of trajectory of the sort of art team's direction. So looking at things like getting different UI themes and colours, and adding extra sort of visual flair after we have that baseline element in is something that's definitely on the cards for the future. It's just as to when that sort of gets all done, but I'm pretty confident it won't be too long.
Let's move on before we go down this rabbit hole too far there.
I just want to make one more comment on this. And
Joe makes a point. Oh, here we go. No, I'm joking.
So we've got a requirements priority list, and there are 4 categories, 3 of which are basically stuff that's going to go in the game in like descending order of importance. And the last category is like a won't do category, and in that category we're going to chuck in a load of quality of life stuff that we think should be in the game, but we're just not doing until we have a base game together. And so you're probably going to have a lot of great ideas about quality of life stuff, and they also get noted, put in the requirements, and parked until we've got that base game done.
Post 1.0.
Yeah. The sort of 1.0 where we're like, yeah, this is a playable game. And it won't be... to be honest, I don't even see like a version 1 matching the sort of capability of using Victoria 2. I sort of see it as just a proof of every feature that we want to develop, almost like the alpha in a sense. And then we get the absolute fine-grained detail in after that. But the must-have sort of requirements are going to be pretty extensive, so we might just end up like doing that anyway for version 1, but who knows? We'll have to see how it goes.
All right, thanks guys. So Andrew, thank you very much for the $7.99 Australian dollars. Again, would you be able to put the game on Steam with workshop functions? Okay, basic question. Steam, workshop, that sort of thing.
Right,
that's been asked a lot as well.
I had requirements chat earlier this week on the Sunday. We had
the guy in the question also says if I need to purchase the game, it's not going to be purchase free.
Yes,
it's free and open source.
Yeah. So theoretically, even if we asked you to pay for it, you could just go download it from GitHub and run it yourself really easily. So it would be so ridiculous for us to try.
Well, we can't do that anyway. But
exactly.
the only thing we could do is accept donations and accept the Patreon, as long as we are not charging you.
Which we are not doing at this time. Which we are not doing.
Yeah, we are not doing, by the way. But that's the only.
But I am.
Yeah, I will post my bank details.
Spud Gun is not OpenVic2.
definitely go. If you want to support Spudgun, go to his Patreon. Make sure to subscribe and do super chats and all that good. And of course, subscribe to his Twitch. Yeah, twitch.tv/SpudGunOfficial.
Well, thanks. You didn't have to do
You're
that.
welcome.
But,
No worries. This way it looks like
hearing it
you
in
put
my
that-
voice might turn people might get used to hearing it in my voice, so they switch off. But then a new voice,
exactly.
like, wait, what? Oh my god!
Yeah. Oh my god, Spudgun Official. Oh my god.
You know you can subscribe for free with Amazon Prime. Holy shit!
Yeah, exactly.
Well, on the other place, yes.
Yes, in the other realm. But
Maybe
yes.
I should respond to the original question. which is
Yes,
about
you
Steam.
should.
So, as I said, we're looking at this in the requirements, and it came up like, how do we do Steam integration? How could we deal with that? And there were a set of ideas, and what I'm going to do is, I think I will scroll down on my gigantic requirements list. So we have current. Oh my god, these bloody devs keep doing work. I've got 19 pages of ideas for requirements, as in game features that we're looking at adding at the game. 19 A4 pages. On page 2, we've got Steam integration for achievements, for multiplayer integration, and for mods and modability. So ideally, with a Steam integration, we would be able to get it in there to run the workshop, and you'd be able to get mods from the workshop. In an ideal world, we would do all that. And what I put in a sort of like, sort of little pencil note next to it is that, yes, we would love to do all of these things, but they are outside of scope for like a version 1, and we'd probably be looking at doing them after that. They would fall into the same category as all the other quality of life stuff, They're nice to have, but we don't actually need them for the base game to be done.
And then there's the fact that Victoria 2 has existed without Steam Workshop anyway, and it's been fine. So there's that. It's not actually that high a priority, like you just said.
Yeah. Well, we've had a lot of discussions about how we'll integrate modding and potential workshops type thing. We haven't had super duper robust discussions, but ideas that have been thrown around that we are considering as of this time, who knows for how long, are our own website where you can download it, and potentially having a way to have mods come from there, or our own launcher where you can easily install your own mods there. But that is all very, very much secondary to the core ideas that we have, which are just trying to get this thing on the road and get it in, get Vic2, get OpenVic2 kind of just out the door, I suppose, before we consider these really, really nice. It would be lovely to be able to have some kind of launcher where you can install mods or even search for them. But that is very much out of scope at the moment.
OpenTTD there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
OpenTTD has, within its own launcher, you can search for mods and download them from its own launcher. And if you join someone else's multiplayer game that is using mods, you automatically download them and then go in the game. That is huge.
Outside of scope, that's all very nice stuff.
That's luxurious quality of life right there.
I mean, could you imagine a Vic2 system where you automatically download the mods before joining the game?
That's like your upper class getting its luxury needs.
While you automatically download mods while hot joining a game that is in progress.
While someone is simultaneously resyncing. Can you imagine? Could you imagine? But these are all things that are outside of scope for this time, but are definitely things that we would really, I feel like a lot of us would really like to be in. But we've got to stay focused, and we've got to stop the feature creep.
And we've got to stay focused and stop the super chat creep. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
Well,
Tijin, for $2 thank you very much. Do you plan to make historical changes to the game, which I'll take to mean maybe... This is also going to be a simple answer in terms of the scope of the project, but improving the detail of the cultures, representing the historical borders correctly, naming cities right, and fixing things that Paradox got wrong in that respect, which even though, I mean, that's a difficult one because fixing historical inaccuracies is, but...
I'd like to interject. So I would say some of those things, if they're really easy and painless for us to do, I could see us just straight up just doing it. If something's going to take literally a minute or two to fix, or
no
it's
one's going to care.
We're already doing it. Yeah, we'll just fix little things.
If a city name is obviously wrong and we can just fix it with literally a couple button presses, we'll fix. I mean, I don't see a reason for us to be that dogmatic. right?
I can't think of too many examples of that off the top of my head anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if we can just read the format, like anybody could make their own additions to any specific to the format as well. So anybody else would be able to do it just as much as us.
The one that keeps coming to my mind, and this is a tangent, is when we were doing a coverage of a Paradox pre-release Victoria 3 stream, we did coverage, we had their stream on my stream and covered it. They ended up playing as Zulu in 1836, and one of the cities was Peter Maritzburg, a Boer city, as Zulu in 1836, with the Paradox devs live playing that before the game came out.
And they prepared for a demo with that, knowing that province was called that.
Oh no! They didn't plan to play Zulu. They started playing Egypt, but then the game kept bugging out. So
they didn't play like a major, like
they couldn't play what they wanted, so they had to play one that they wouldn't want to play.
That's a bit embarrassing.
What's the key bit of advice you give to people who start like playing Victoria 2 for the first time? You say, don't be a fool and play a tiny little country. The great powers will bully you, and you'll feel bad. Pick a big country and be the bully.
Yeah,
true. Yeah,
quite.
Also,
I got to be honest. I thought you were going to mention something entirely different when you mentioned Zulu.
I've seen it mentioned.
Yeah. We will probably fix that. To be honest, the whole I don't know. I don't even know how to
this for you.
Yes, please.
So in the base game of Victoria 2, if you play Zulu and you're an uncivilized nation, you have Zulu warriors, which have spears and shields in the style of the Zulu warriors, okay, as they fought against, the British, the Boers, etc., and so on, right? So that's all well and good. That's completely historically accurate, great stuff, right? But if you actually civilize and get like the 1900 tech, the black Africans are replaced with white Europeans in full European garb, which sort of has this unfortunate implication that the civilization of Zulu, in Paradox's eyes, is the idea of them being replaced by white Europeans in European styles. See, when I saw those images for the first time, I just assumed it was like a black warrior in European uniform, which is pretty bad in itself because it wouldn't look like that. But like I thought that was the approach. In my mind, a civilized Zulu state would move away from spears and shields and would be armed with rifles, but there would be elements of traditional African dress embedded within their uniform. Like perhaps there's a camouflage pattern or a certain like headdress or something distinguishing them that makes them come across as civilized but still culturally Zulu.
This is something that from the art team I'm really looking forward to getting involved with, because there's a lot here that's not necessarily left up to interpretation, but there's a lot of wiggle room in terms of creating a more detailed world while staying true to Victoria 2's original vision and the sort of accuracies of the time period, given room with obviously some leeway for alternative history, right? So we're looking at getting custom portraits and models sorted for these sort of things. Quite early into development. So as and when these things are ready, especially sort of the more notorious examples like the race-changing Zulus, I think we'll show those off to the community so they can see the progress that we're making on that front.
Rather the fact that we do not have race-changing Zulus.
Absolutely.
There's a big Weevil video on that, if anyone's...
There is. Yeah,
but next one, Jacob for $5 thank you, says, thoughts on having individual provinces be conquerable instead of just full states. That's another feature thing, but it is,
interesting. Yeah. Is that something little we could sneak in there? Would it be worth it?
I don't think so. I think keeping it as it is on that front would be the approach, because it's not that important. It could make the game more detailed, deep and interesting, but it's not huge.
I mean, I remember a specific moment in the Venice series. Sorry to go back to you all the time, Spud, where you split Istria.
It's fine.
But between you and Big Weevil by using some releasing nation techniques to split a state in half. I would say that the functionality to be able to add that through mods will probably end up being present at some point. Maybe not on release.
I would go further than that. Okay, so by definition, if you're able to annex a state using programmatic methods, to transfer provinces to another country using a war goal, you could quite easily add a war goal and the mechanics to simply transfer one province instead of a whole state. In programmatic terms, I see that as quite an easy bit of functionality to develop. Now, we may not necessarily do that for a version 1.0, but that would be a great little thing we could have in that endless list of quality of life improvements or little additions we could add to the game as a sort of like extended game.
All right, so next one.
I think so, yeah.
Yep.
All right, Monday, thank you very much for the $10 asks, will the economy be the same or improve, change, or how close? Well, I mean, that is, I guess, stuff. I mean, I just skimmed over the question, but that is stuff that we've talked about already. I think we already touched on some of those things, and it's also going to the point of what we change. But specifically, the economy is a can of worms.
Where do we start?
Well, I guess the succinct answer to that question would be, we are trying to replicate as faithfully as we can the economy and its quirks. However, that is inevitably somewhat impossible. So we're just going to have to get as close as we can, which might be very close to the point where the average Vic player does not notice that it's different at all. But that's not a guarantee. We don't have access to the economy code. There is obviously that joke that not even PDX know about the economy. They do. That is not true. But they do say that it is janky. They understand it, but it is rough. Basically.
Even Dan, was it Dan Linden? Was it or
yes,
I don't
Dan
remember
Lind.
his last name. Yeah, Dan Lind. He was actually talking about it. He said he would scrap the whole thing and put it in an incinerator if he had the chance.
I would like to comment my own thoughts on this, which are more a set of feelings than like functionality or whatever, right? So I think with the economy, at least in my philosophy, design philosophy for the economy, it's about just getting the feel of the economy right, and it being like quite subjective in terms of how it balances out. Because I think what we want more than anything is less an economy that makes logical sense where the numbers are completely perfect across the board, and deflation, inflation, everything's factored in. I think most of us want a balanced economy where you produce goods, and there's an excess, price goes down. Like that kind of like just sensible stuff. So like I remember a problem in Victoria 2 that I always encountered is like first couple of years, what's highest in demand? And it's not actually machine parts, you think it would be, but it's actually artillery. Because in competitive multiplayer, everyone artillery, and no one can get artillery. And
even
it's just
in single player, it's impossible to get unless you're like literally the top 1 GP.
And that's just not realistic in any way. Like every country would have some kind of artisanal base that would be able to produce at least some artillery that would be able to meet the standards. I mean, we can get a whole discussion like how quality goods are manufactured, but the whole point of artisans was it's like non-factory production that can produce stuff for you. And that really irks me. It was like that seemed like such a simple thing, but it always got on my nerves that like day one everyone just goes buy 2,000 artillery and the price just stays high, and yet it's somehow unprofitable to make as well. Like it's like what?
Yeah.
How does it have high demand, but yet it doesn't make you any money when you sell?
Well, that could come down to not having the steel and the iron and the resources that go into artillery, explosives, actually. But yeah.
Yeah,
you'd think that that workers would like shuffle around because the price of iron would then start going high, because it's so in demand.
Yes.
It's like all these like weird questions about like why are these economic problems not self-correcting to a degree? And this is the thing, right? Don't want to get into like super technical. Let's run the numbers. Let's get an economist in and run everything. It's like get the feel, the balance of the economy. Just
Wait,
right.
Catylist, you're currently studying economics, aren't you?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm working on a BA in economics at the moment, and I have quite a bit of knowledge in the area. That's what I was going to say just to finish off, but I can say it now, is if you're an economist, I've seen a few people who are saying they're economists and would like to contribute in that respect. Personally, as somewhat of a non-professional but academic trained economist, I would say I encourage you to get involved, but making the economy super realistic and really good and just something that works brilliantly It's outside of the scope of our project. However, don't be disheartened. I would absolutely love, and if I don't see this happen, I will bloody do it on my own. I would love to see a modding team come together to make an overhaul mod of some kind that may have, whatever else stuff, or just be on its own, an economy overhaul that provides a realistic and balanced system with way more nuance, because there is so many rabbit holes you can go down with the problem with the Vic2 economy. And one of those big ones that I don't see talked about too much, that I won't go into super detail because we do have other questions, is the question of distribution, right? And that not only you can't just in real life, you can't just buy a good and then bang, you have that good. You have to have distribution methods.
Hey, it's going that way, mate.
Yeah.
Amazon, and that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, it is. But absolutely, but the financial services is completely left out of the Vic2 economy, even though that was a significant part and remains to be a significant dominating aspect of the British economy, which obviously Victoria, the concept of Victoria is obviously interlinked with that pretty inseparably. And the financial services, not just then, but also the retail, and just there are so many other industries other than production that are just completely left out, and I would absolutely love to see those represented. It's just absolutely definitively outside of the scope of this project. So we'd love to see a modder or group of modders do that and work with colonists.
Yeah, and even within the scope of the project, there are going to be so many difficult things with the economy, and whether you replicate some of the problems that Joe outlined, even though they don't make much sense, and I think you probably have to, because we're replicating it faithfully.
Yeah.
Maybe with some little things different. I don't know.
Expect like a day one sort of release version, sort of 1.0 economy to be janky as fuck. It's not going to work that well. It's going to be strange. It's going to be a bit alien. You're going to prod it from a distance with a stick, like, it's like Victoria, but it's weird.
Yeah,
that's what's going to be in the early days.
Well,
but the whole point is it functions.
Are you trying to sell Victoria 3 or something? No.
No. I would 100% prefer playing a weird alien Vic2 economy. The Victoria 3 economy irks me as a fan of grand strategy and as an economist. It really just irks me.
I have to make a little. I have to say something here. When we talk about the modding capacity, upgrading what you can mod, that isn't just a little thing. Oh, you can make a few extra things. You can mod a few extra things more than you could in normal Victoria 2. Because it's all open source and you have everything, the scale of things that you can change or make this game into, or put this game into something else, is just unbelievable. For example, you can have a branch of the game, a version of the game, that makes it Victoria Stellaris, where you can fucking build up a country and have space travel and and go fucking land on another planet in its divergences of darkness and have them interact with your existing planet, which is the normal world. It's possible with the modding that we can do.
Yeah,
it's fucking insane.
The difference between Paradox modding and open source is that Paradox modding is extremely constrained by what Paradox gives you to mod a game. They let you have like a couple of variables you can change, or maybe you can adjust what's in a list of things. Maybe you can change a few assets. If you have open source, you can literally write whatever you want. You can make anything you want and extend it as much as you want, and that's purely down to that time you put in it. If
you consider oosing part of the experience, you can add it back in.
Yeah, I can't be honest.
The absolute diehards might want that,
Yeah.
It's not the same without going out of sync every 10 minutes.
Exactly.
I mean, make no bones about it, like the basic janky version of this game is still going to be multiple years out. They're like, we're motivated by this like star in the sky kind of hope that we'll make something nice, but we're also simultaneously very realistic about the sheer quantity of time this is going to take and the effort it's going to go for. So everything's possible in time.
Let me have those moments of speculating with fascinating mods can do. I'm still realistic about the project and all that. On top of that.
I would say that post our release, where we release something that we are happy with, the team isn't just going to disappear, I don't think. Maybe some people will drop off and life is life and people have things to do. But I would say that a lot of our focus after release would be stability, multiplayer security and stability, and also modability tools and modding tools, and potentially even putting guides out, putting everything out, because we don't want just a system where a modder can go into the open source and completely rebuild the game, and then basically in order to mod the game you have to have a completely different version of the game. We would like to include our own tools that are just superior to Paradox tools if possible. I certainly think that that is very much possible.
Just on that point, we brought up the concept of mod tools and like making it easier for people to mod the game, and my knee-jerk reaction was to say that's completely totally out of scope. Like, no, that's not happening day one. Like, that's quite a lot of effort to do and to test.
Yeah, I agree as well that we don't need it.
Let me get to my actual point, which is that if we were to implement these things, they would probably be really useful for testing the game while we're developing it, which means we may just make them anyway because it makes the game easier to make.
Can I point something out on that, actually? On that point, actually, the fact that we're using Godot makes a lot of that a bit easier since it has GD script, which we can use for testing purposes, but also if we integrate into Godot properly, you could pretty much script you would be capable to script anything you wanted on like events or on all the other stuff through GD script. You wouldn't need to have to go through Paradox stuff or format. And and it has testing measures too. So there are manners to test within Godot, and there's Godot testing.
Yeah, personally, I'm very convinced by Godot, and also, of course, Spartan's arguments for Godot. Yeah. Do we have any more super chats?
Yeah, there were. I was just going to move on to Luminite with $5. Thank you very much. And he says, we will rebuild him. Quite simple.
Quite. Yeah, well, that's the plan, isn't it? Let's do that.
And then the Jewish Bagel just gave $2. Thank you. And IDK, what I'm doing with the 5 Bulgarian Lev says, I have to go and get the entire chat here. Okay. Is the world map going to be like a globe in the one? Okay, so I'll read it fully. Is the world map going to be a globe like in one of the projects Spud mentioned in his first OpenVic2 video, or a regular map? I can answer that. It's regular map. That's what it's going to be. So,
yeah.
Short answer: no, it's not a globe. It's going to be normal art.
But would we build a globe if we could? Well, maybe.
Maybe a modder can do it. I prefer a modder to do it, but I mean, theoretically, it would be. Maybe Schomburg will do it. Who knows? I mean, he likes globes. But in his project, it is actually important to note that it isn't at all clear in Spud's video, but you can actually switch between a globe and a regular map, which is potentially something.
Yes, and guess what other game has that? I think I mentioned something about it, but Symphony of Empires is the same. You can have two options, and they have a globe and a straight rectangle map thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's really
nice. I mean, something positive to say is, on top of the project we have and all the things we've just talked about, we also have Symphony of Empires there doing a nice little thing to look forward to as well. And they're sort of, they're advising this project there as well. So it's all good. And we probably have more super chats. Actually, Spartan, you kept track of some of the really good questions that were not necessarily a super chat. Do you want to give us one of those?
Yes. Spartan, can I ask you first, how many do you have?
There's a lot here that I can see.
Yeah, there is a lot.
Hang on, wait. Do we have a document? One sec.
Yeah, the document.
It's the original document.
It's the discussion stream.
Aha.
Doc.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Where are they?
God.
Oh yeah, there's
some of them.
There's like 7 pages.
9 pages.
Oh
my
God.
Okay,
you don't have to answer all of them. Skip any of the ones you don't want, but I think at least some of them are worth mentioning.
Aha. Okay.
We've answered a whole bunch of these.
Yeah, I've seen one that I like. What languages will be available for OpenVic2? Answer as many as we can. Under my understanding, we plan to make localization something that anyone can just contribute to.
Oh man, do you remember like the first 3 days on this, and we were looking at who would even be in the dev team, and we had 15 different languages.
Yeah,
we volunteered immediately day one. Yeah,
I will tell you right now. I will grab the form.
While you grab the form, I have to just point out that there's some, there has to be some kind of vetting done with the languages. People can just contribute something. People can just contribute the entire text of Mein Kampf in their language. We wouldn't know. And it's got to be vetting.
Yeah, I feel like having multiple. I mean, let me tell you, 60 people put themselves forward out of 168 so far on the public contributor catalog. 60 of them put themselves forward for localization and translation. And it's something that, as far as I understand, is very easy for us to support and have it very non-technical people can go in and do that with just a little bit of research. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see how that would not be the case.
As long as we could provide someone with every bit of text that would be displayed in the game.
Someone in the chat asks, let me translate Vic2 to Basque. Absolutely. Go ahead. Join the Discord.
Join the Discord. Yeah, do it.
You might not be the first person who's even offered to do that.
Yeah. Well, actually, let me tell you right now.
There was a guy who was saying you do Catalan. There's another who'd say do Galician.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, no Basque, but we could get the whole Iberian Quattrofecta or something. Portuguese, Catalonian,
Portuguese,
Spanish,
and Portuguese from Brazil as well. Brazilian Portuguese.
We might have some
both types of Portuguese.
We might have some Spanish people, Castilian Spanish speakers, people volunteering to delete the Basque and Catalan.
Oh God! Right. Next question.
Well,
Power bombs the OpenVic2.
Oof.
Can we get corporate entities that can lobby the government? Yeah, in a mod, not out of scope. Are there any plans?
Out of scope. Oos. We have to start saying oos.
Oh my God! That's
genius.
We out of scope. Oos. Oh my God! We can completely redefine the term.
We can take control of that.
Oos.
Exactly.
Take it back.
Out of scope. Oos. Okay, from now on, I'm just going to say oos instead of out of scope. Right.
Well, speaking of
plans?
that, this one's debatable. It's the last super chat so far, and this is going to be more before the stream ends. And it's Fellington with $2 Australian. Thank you. And he mentions army templates like EU4, which it's not a simple case of saying that's out of scope, because I've mentioned that a lot myself. I mentioned it
is an immediate concern in terms of it will be one of the first things we'd look to implement after a version 1.
Yeah.
It's technically out of scope, but
I think it's out of scope of version 1, but I think it's within reasonable scope that it would just be weird of us not to add, at the very least, heavy support for easy implementation and customization. But that would probably just be our own thing. Yes, Parker.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, if we implement this properly with all the GUI stuff, it should be fairly trivial for people to add their own GUI elements instead of what ends up happening with a lot of Vic2 is that it expects certain GUI elements and it just crashes if they're not there or if they're modified in certain ways.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm gonna get around that.
Yeah.
With Godot, we won't have that problem.
No.
Or any other engine.
Yeah, we're hoping. I'm hoping because UI is something that I know this mainly from following Solaris development. Adding new UI is really time consuming in Clausewitz. And I would hope that that's something we could improve on and make it so modders can add their own UI elements or customize our UI elements so that they're more readable. Because obviously the Vic2 UI, we're going to copy it more or less as far as the layout, definitely as far as the layout. But it does leave a little to be desired in some aspects. But it's good enough that we're not going to change it, I would say, that much. I will
point out that what we could do as well is we could make it so that at the base of the game, or at the base of how we work, is that we try to use Godot UI features as much as possible in the sense that if we're not loading an existing Vic2 data or whatever, we could basically just throw it all through Godot and make all our UI through Godot and get a much better experience out of it. We don't have to write any text files. Open up the editor and you're messing with the UI interface directly. Yeah. And anybody could open it up and do that if they wanted. They could make their own patches, quote unquote, to our project, and then they could just add on to like UI elements or anything like that. They could call events and such from their or other things from say GD script or UI. I won't say that that would be a first implementation thing. Isn't that far off? How easy that would be.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that is a good point. I've spotted the super chat, but I would really like to say this from the big document. This is going to take ages, by the way. I reckon this will be half, but I'm enjoying myself.
Ignore any of the questions you don't feel like answering or you don't think was worth answering or that we've already answered, because some of them are repeated.
Well, yeah, I see one that is, are there any plans for a useful tutorial / help guide?
We already discussed this.
I would say...
Conversation.
Yeah, I would say...
Oos.
Oos for definitely Oos as far as actual game. But I would say that perhaps after release, modding guides or a very rough guide to just getting started could be something that we could look into. But that would have to have a conversation about that. I'm personally for something like that, but at the moment it's Oos. And there's that super chat.
Yeah, there is this super chat. Thank you very much for the $5, Monday. But I know you acknowledge that the networking guy isn't here in the question. You ask how you're expecting multiplayer to work. But I genuinely do think we probably should actually wait for FakeBite before answering.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think,
we can talk about it now. But...
I mean, we can probably give a reasonable enough answer to that question, but it feels a bit sad not having FakeBite.
And frankly, I want to sit here and listen to FakeBite talk about it as well a lot. But yeah.
I can just give a basic, like, not even really an overview, more like just a quick like statement on that. Is we're probably going to use Godot's built-in low-level networking features. Probably going to support NAT hole punching.
Say NAT hole punching.
Yeah.
Cool. One thing to extend on that, which FakeBite will be able to go into depth on, is the whole concept of making the game deterministic, which is a can of worms in itself. But needless to say, that's a way of making sure that game states don't have any stochastic variance, that is random behavior. And that's, FakeBite will go into detail in the fullness of time. And I'll end at that point there.
That is to do with oosing right there.
Yes. Well, oh god, now we've got the term being used for two completely separate things. Oh god, we may have made a big mistake here, but no. There's It's Me Carson asks, will sound design change, or will more classical Victorian music be added? I think at a later date, I would like to do a dev diary, maybe even a stream. It's up to Spud. I don't mind. On the
do your dev diary, then we do a stream about it. That's the
brilliant.
Well, that works. Format.
Yeah, on sound design and especially on the direction I'd like to take with the soundtrack design. That's my speciality as far as the specific team I work on. But I do think that we plan to do a few things. We're going to have some bespoke music. We're going to have some music that's based on... We already have, and are going to have more music that is based on the actual Vic2 soundtrack, and also based on what the Vic2 soundtrack is based on, because I got to be honest, some of those tracks are blatant rip-offs, so we might go straight to the source in a few cases.
You know what? But, some of the Victoria 2 soundtracks songs are blatant rip-offs of real pieces. Anyway.
Well, exactly. That's what I mean. Especially there's an American tune that is literally just British Grenadiers.
There's the one that's just Zadok the Priest, and there's
that's the one I've already actually done.
The British Grenadiers March.
Yes, that one. Yeah. So I think, but there's going to be a lot of bespoke music as well. But I'll go into more detail on that. Also, I felt like doing a little bit of a Spud Gun Venice series tribute by adding a Raindrop, Bartok Raindrop Symphony take in there somewhere, because I feel like it fits the actual tone of the game really well. But we'll talk about that at a later date.
Is the American Bloodbath song, what's it called, Dvorak, is that contemporary to the period? I think it is, right?
Oh, you mean New World Symphony?
Yeah, it is, right?
It is close enough, I think. I think it's a little bit too modern.
Yeah, it is on the modern end. But one thing I really want to interject here is Victoria 1 had an entirely classical set of music.
Yeah, there is also the whole concept of a lot of romantic music, and a lot of for example, Zadok the Priest was definitely used a lot in the in the Victorian era, but it was absolutely not a contemporary piece, even at the time of Victoria. It was written by Angela,
Oh,
I believe.
yeah, that's true.
So
There was something I wanted to comment more about the music. Two aspects to this, really. One, and this is all theory. This is all like would be great to have in a imagination of what the final game could be. But could you imagine having different types of music play as you go through the timeline in the game? That's one thing.
Yeah, that would be trivial to add, to be honest.
The other one, which is I kind of wanted to mention Catylist, but like he covered it pretty well. Is could you imagine playing a country with country appropriate music from that sphere of the world as well? Like,
Yeah.
these are the kinds of possibilities you could get with, potentially with like modern as well.
Can we please add Sabaton?
There's also a lot of there's a lot of mods that exist already for other PDX games. I know there's quite a few for Hearts of Iron. It has dynamic music as well. So
Yep.
you have music specific to warfare, peacetime.
Well, EU4 does that actually, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, there's that. Yeah, even PDX has actually explored a lot of that concept, and I'm very convinced by it. I do think that a certain level of scale needs to be approached, though. You can't just have peace music and then have war music for the whole game.
Wait, no, there's got to be music differently when you're at war. Oh my god.
Yeah, no. There will absolutely be that. I think that will be base, to be honest. And luckily, I feel like in this aspect, I have
Oblivion fighting music when you go to war.
Exactly.
Dun, 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 dun.
One British go to war, British Grenadiers.
I have been trying to hold myself back because I have a lot of ideas for Russian music, and music for specific events in Russian history that could also maybe apply to the game at large. But I will again don't want to go into too much detail. I'll eat up all my topics that I have for future discussion. But yeah, basically I am looking to do something very good. Is the TLDR on that question. There will be a sound design change. We have to change the sound design legally, and we have to change the music. But don't worry, I got to be honest. Apart from the Vic. Okay, no. There's a topic. We're not going to talk about the soundtrack to Vic games at the moment because that is out of
Zeus.
It's Zeus.
That's Zeus. It's Zeus for this stream. It's not for the project, but for this stream.
I can move on from that. There's a question here from Otto, which is sort of staying on the topic of design, asking about which aspects of the UI will be changed. So he gives, for example, portraits, goods, and pop icons. So for that, you're generally talking about the sprites. So to give you from sort of where we're up to in terms of the art team on that, we actually discussed the sprites. I think it was actually yesterday specifically, and my current sort of philosophy on that is that they absolutely will be completely different, at least in terms of how they're designed. So we're not going to go for sprites, and the UI is going to need to change to reflect that. So in terms of portraits, we want to be able to, at the very least, have varied and clear portraits rather than sort of a jumbled mess of pixels. So we want to make sure that art is visible, and also obviously within that have a degree of customization and a variability based on culture and maybe even technology as well, and obviously ethnicity. So there's a lot that can be changed in there. The extent to which the UI will change around that is to be decided. I think ultimately what we want to do is make sure that the UI is in its layout generally pretty close to what Victoria 2's already is. But within that, there might certainly be things that are of different scales, sizes, and what have you, just to make sure that everything's clear, legible, and understandable, and also to make sure that it looks as good as possible without losing the easy accessibility that you could hop onto Vic2 and then OpenVic rather, and be able to instantly sort of translate your knowledge of the UI between the two. So it's definitely, from a design perspective at least, something that we're going to continue to iterate on, but something that we're hoping to make sure is fully fleshed out in terms of providing unique, interesting design elements rather than sort of just entirely mimicking Paradox's style, which is definitely something that's, in terms of Vic2's design, one of the weaker elements.
Yeah, I would like to add on that. And generally, the art and lumping art and music together here, I would say that from an artistic perspective, there is a yearning from both teams to innovate and to depart a little bit more than the code base is concerned. And in a way, that compared to the dev team, that is also encouraged by the obviously we can't use the actual assets. And so if we can't use them anyway, then we might as well, see if we can maybe improve things here and there, do a few touch-ups, do a few design passes. And I mean, with music, I definitely I see the music and SFX's job, especially music, because that's my personal specialty, but I'd really like to, make sure the SFX are good as well. So the objective is to no less than blow Paradox completely out of the water on that front.
Hey, don't use competitive talk. Don't use competitive talk.
I'll say in this. I gotta be honest. I'm very unimpressed with the Victoria line of games' creative decisions as far as music is concerned. But we'll talk about that in a future stream because I definitely have choice words to say, and I know at least with that particular aspect, I'm only annoying one particular person, which is the person who made them, and not perhaps the whole team. So I feel slightly more secure in that aspect. If anyone has anything else to add to that general topic.
I played the fifth. Okay, so let's just get one or two more questions then. And
I have. Oh God, there are so many.
Wait, how about look through them, find one more question, the best.
How about just quick fire questions?
Okay, quick fire questions.
Okay, we'll do them, but we ask.
Can you encircle a navy in OpenVic2?
Yes.
No.
Oh, we got a major disagreement. You're all fired. We're encircling navies.
No. No. Do the developers see this as a bit of a revolution against PDX? Is there a future where grand strategy gamers make and play their own games, entirely open source, free to play, easy to contribute? Don't know. No idea. This is not seeing it as a revolution is not exactly what we're going for. Obviously, as we've talked, we're not trying to actually compete at all.
Yeah, I can talk about that though. I know it's supposed to be quickfire, but so the basic answer, I'll try and do it as quickly as possible.
Well, it's just I thought it was thought-provoking.
Okay, it is a good like I said, I saw that question and thought we need to write down the good questions because it's such a good question, a deep question. The short answer is it's by intention, no. By incidentally or by repercussions, out of our control. Maybe. Can't say. Not intentional though. We're just doing our thing.
It's philosophically it is out of our. It's larger than us, that. But yeah.
Come back to design. Somebody asks, Halfnaff asks if we could do similar things with the UI as CK2, where different cultures have different themes in terms of the UI elements. I don't know to what extent we'll be able to replicate something that specific, but I like the idea of it, at least in terms of sort of talking about sort of major civilizational themes. So maybe you could have something for generally European cultures, something in Africa, Asian, what have you. That's something I'd like to do, but what I do know for certain is there certainly will be, after we get a base structure out, I want to make sure either that base structure is customizable, or that there are various different customizable and selectable options themes that ones can choose in game at all times. So there definitely will be choice.
There's a few questions here on the hackathon. Are hackathon submissions suggested to use Godot as well? Yes, short answer, yes, but we suggest, if you can, if it's a toss-up between what you prefer and C++, I recommend you go with C++. If you're invested at all in getting anything from the hackathon into the actual project, because then it will be a significant easier interpretation from
skill that you can do that, but
yeah, go for it, Spartan.
I was just saying, if you want to demonstrate skill, then you can just use the hackathon. But if you're actually aiming to put something into project, it would be suggested that you probably stick with not necessarily Godot, but if you're going to add to it, it would be most optimal. Using C++ would be most optimal. Type of stuff.
Presumably work before the hackathon is started is acceptable. We can't stop you, so yeah, it kind of has to be.
Just try not to use SOE or OpenV2 or anything like that in it.
Yeah, that question, can we use libraries and parts of our previous code for the hackathon? Yes, you can, especially if it's not public. With previous work. However, using SOE and using Schomburg stuff and everything, you're free to do that. But bear in mind, we do know that is from there, right? So if you're just going to submit someone else's project or submit your own project, looking at you, Schomburg, we will look at SOE and we will look at Schomburg's project separately. So having them in the hackathon is a little bit redundant. Have you mentioned before why you're using C++ over GDS? Is it due to optimization or something else? I think maybe a little bit for this quickfire,
it's for performance reasons. It's because we're familiar with C++ more than we're familiar with GDScript. I wouldn't say that we're discounting the capability to use GDScript in certain places, but most of it's going to be in.
Brilliant.
A couple more, just quick fire questions. Just
quick fire. Okay. How about this? I can crap out a few. You might have said that it didn't, but will the Dev Diary be weekly, monthly? No schedule on the Dev Diary. Hopefully, maybe 1 or 2 a month. But
as and when?
No actual schedule. As and when we have stuff to put in there. Does anyone have anything? Where would we submit hackathon submissions? There will be. Look at the public Discord. That's going to be there. All your information will be there in due course.
We have answered a lot of these, to be fair.
Yeah,
I've got here a couple of questions about the green line, which are made in jest, but I will say that I am looking as well at including colorblind support in terms of graphic design.
Oh,
yeah, that is a good idea.
That's good.
Yeah, so high contrast options perhaps. Definitely for the UI, maybe for other parts of the game as well.
Generally, green line going up, but if you're colorblind, we've got you covered. It won't just be a green line. Could be a nice pink line if you want. I don't know.
I've got a good question
yellow on black. Yep.
Do you have a list of the project's requirements? Yes, but it's really, really early days. And then another one, which is which projects have you worked on? And that's to me personally about projects I've worked on for real. No comment. Moving on.
All right, moving on. Will you be able to zoom out all the way? Maybe. By the way, what Prime Mega we've already answered that. Will you include improvement? OpenVic2 RTX on.
Have you? Let's answer to that question. Go and watch Oppenheimer.
No. That's a good one actually. OpenVic2 RTX on. I would ideally, in an ideal world, like to have texture pack and shader support. So we can have people with custom shaders. So maybe something like In the Heavens mod for CK2, which is a really good mod and has support with a lot of total conversion mods as well, and also has an EU4 port. I'm not sure about any other games. Is excellent. Would like to have some kind of support for something like that. But that may be decided to be use at least for definitely for first release.
Here's what I want to emphasize. Will it include war crimes? No. Obviously not.
We can't.
Obviously not.
No.
All right. Let me mention one.
Yeah, go for it.
Mention one thing. What do you mean by compiler? Like C++ compiler? No, I'm referring to. We're going to try and follow what Scomber did, where he compiled some of the events and the triggers into a bytecode. I'm going to try and do that. For now, we're merely parsing it. That's our first aim.
Yeah, I actually have a question from memory that I saw in the chat once about whether we use the same text for events and things, which is actually a really big question.
Probably not. Just because it's a little on the edge as far as using it. But that is something that is we haven't really discussed, and it's probably a really easy fix for that.
I mean, it depends on if we're I guess if we're not loading if we weren't loading their localization, we were loading our own, we wouldn't. But if we were loading, it's not like we can't load that. I mean, it's a CSV, so it's definitely supportable.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a great question here. What about infamy cost rebalance?
Not OOS, but we will absolutely make mods able to completely change
that is already widespread in mods, as it is in Victoria 2 now.
Yes.
It'll just be less annoying.
Yeah.
Would there be a future need to get crowdfunding started, since there will inevitably be costs for the project? There may be. I'm absolutely by no means ruling it out. If the project goes really well, and if we feel like it is appropriate, we may consider starting a crowdfunding kind of thing. However, from many reasons, we are not approaching that at all at this time, especially since we're so early in development. It just wouldn't be right.
I think a summary of it is we've effectively made a sincere promise to release a version 1.0 that is effectively feature complete without any monetary contributions whatsoever.
There was another question, but I've lost it.
Like I said in the video, just get yourself something nice.
Yeah, exactly. But get a beer on Spud. Yeah.
Well, there has been a super chat, and it is Patrick. Thanks for the €6. Guys, go play Victoria 3 already. It's out, actually. You guys must not be aware. Victoria 3 is great. Bokoin 1 plays it.
Yeah, that is true. Oh my god, I've wasted so much of my time.
I haven't actually played Victoria 3 for months myself. I haven't actually just bothered. I had one last try at it. It's like, fuck this.
Was it fun?
Who's Bokoin 1? Never heard of him.
Never heard who?
Literally who?
Literally who? I know literally who until like people have mentioned it in relation to Spud Gun.
You just watch that little meme that's been floated around the OpenVic2 community Discord about. I think we talked about it before the stream. Actually, that little video. You can see that average Bokoin video, sort of thing. No, but seriously, I said this is a professional stream. Fully respect him, his content. He does different stuff. Not continuing any beef. Everyone's fine.
One
other question. Says, could the player use them if they own the game? The manner in which we assume to be operating is that you have to own the game in order to use any of the Victoria 2 vanilla.
That would be from a legal perspective. Yes, that is the case. However, there is still very much an ongoing conversation within the leadership team as to whether we do that. Perhaps we could have gone into more detail. I hard disagree too, to be honest, because I think if considering how many custom assets we're making, it would be ridiculous to require Vic2 installation so that we can pull a few text files.
I'm not saying that in this specific case, I'm saying if you wanted to 100%.
The ability to load partial resources of Victoria 2.
Yeah,
it would be in like text files that come with Victoria
the text
2.
not any of the assets.
Still totally against that as well, because it has the implication of improprietary in there, and I just think clean break is the safest way to do it. Safest, certainly.
I think that's something that we need to discuss a little bit more internally before we can come up with a conclusive answer for. But I also lean to keeping everything in house. And sort of talking about that as well. There's a guy here, Delivery Beaver, talking about expanding content and flavor and events and what have you. And I think that if we were going the route of writing things by hand, having generic flavor is something that is absolutely doable, especially from those interested, and especially in terms of modability. So
definitely,
there's tons that can be done there.
Yeah, we actually have a lot of interest. We haven't really answered the people who say they have an interest in providing flavor and history, and there's all sorts of people that are interested in that can provide that too. We just haven't thought about it yet, and we haven't really answered or brought anyone on the team that does that sort of thing yet. But it's in the future, could happen.
On that, if we do have some kind of need for writing or writers, what we will do is probably, instead of taking on specific writers, basically publicize. We haven't discussed this yet, but I thought that we could definitely do that. I think is personally the correct option would be to publicize what we need and just take the best from submissions, instead of having dedicated writers. Potentially, I feel like that's a good quality measure. There's quite a few quickfire ones that I can do really, really quickly.
Just one or two more. We do have to wrap up the stream.
Just one or two indeed. Will Nurserino be involved in any capacity? Here it is. We talked to him about the economy system. He knows it better than anyone else, to our knowledge, and he already is. If you watch the video, you can see actually a screenshot of the beginning of a very long conversation we had with him. Will the entire text of Das Kapital be contained within the Advent of Communism event? Yes, but each individual paragraph will be its own window, and you won't be able to use Enter to skip them. This will.
It's over.
This will take years to make it playable. Aren't you overhyping it? I feel like we are not doing that at all. I feel like we've got a lot of emphasis on the fact that this will take a long time, this stream.
We have the section where we talked about the potential length of the project, and that covers it completely.
how ambitious will the project be, or will you make a basis of making it as reliable as possible to build upon? A mixture. I feel like definitely erring on the making a really reliable, good base for other people to build on, or maybe even ourselves down the line. And I think we're basically done.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm going to call it done on that.
Good.
Because
Well
yeah,
done,
let's get it done before we reach the hour. And
Yeah, goodness.
so I would like to thank you all very, very much for being on the stream and talking about all this. It's been enjoyable, fun, and very enlightening and interesting. Thanks to all of you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, appreciate
Yeah,
it.
it's been great. Cheers.
Excellent. Brilliant.
So I think I'll probably just do my own outro to the stream, and thank you guys for being on. And we're going to do more. I'll have different members of the team, and I'll bring on the same people again many times, hopefully. I don't know how regular this will be. Maybe a week, maybe weekly, because we do have other people to talk to. I need Fake Bite.
Yeah.
We need Fake Bite.
We need big.
We do.
We do. But yeah, I think we would, as a team, we'd be able to sustain something similar to that. I mean, to be honest, I feel like the main limiter, Spud, will be when you want to do other things. You know.
I think I'm thinking about and managing it, and maybe weekly would be okay. Actually, I don't know. It does take a long time to prepare.
Weekly's too.
Future discussion.
Once a month, if you know, is probably.
I'd say somewhere in between. I mean, even if it's just me and Spud, Bateman staring at each other for 2 hours in a stream.
What about Paul Allen's cards?
What about Paul Allen's stream?
And one last thing, I floated the idea of a possible Victoria 2 session or campaign within the team to build a team building
We
exercise.
could do that. We do need some more
And
team.
that
team
could
building
be
exercises.
streamed or not. I don't know.
I think it'd be a waste not to stream that. To be honest, it could be some funny stuff. Will probably be
It would just be the rematch between me and Joe. Oh my god!
Well,
I've spent the last fucking I've spent all these years refining my skills just to finally beat you, Joe. That's all it's been about.
He's gonna alt F4 out of his YouTube.
I might just
career
play Mexico
afterwards.
or something.
Yeah,
Well, I'll play the USCA and still beat you from all my new skills.
Oh goodness. Well, it's been brilliant to be here, and I really appreciate it. There were lots of really good questions, and also, can I just say, community reaction to this project has been absolutely amazing, and it's been so motivating for everyone involved in the project. And also, in general, just from everywhere. I mean, even I mean, I don't want to bring it up too much, but even on Reddit, I got to be honest, I feel like the winds have gone very much in favor of the project now after the follow-up video and everything, and the comments in the follow-up video and in the previous video, of course, were all very, very positive, and the team gets a lot of motivation out of that, and we're all very appreciative of Spudgunner, but also everyone who commented and everyone who shows us
everyone's
support.
equally, if not more, appreciative of the team as well for doing what they're doing, of course.
Thank you.
So
Much
thanks,
appreciated.
guys. You can feel free to leave the VC. It's been a very fun time. Thank you.
All right,
Brilliant.
thank you very much. Speak soon.
Have a good one.
Cheers. Take care, guys.
See you.
And okay, right, now we do our little outro chat. So for the shilling stuff, join the community Discord for the project, link in the description. All the discussion, all the latest news that you can get faster updates on than I can provide on my channel, naturally. And the hackathon information, if you want to contribute, it's all there. Ask any further questions. If you ask a question, if you make a suggestion in the suggestion thread thing, you'll probably get a member of the team answering you at some point. If not, try again. And as for the I think that's about it for the shilling of the project stuff. As for me, I've got the Patreon to support the channel, and I've got an upcoming stream on Sunday, a Victoria 2 stream on Twitch. My Twitch link is in the description. I keep game streams on Twitch, and I've decided to put these discussion streams here on YouTube. So a bit of a mix. I do believe there were people who joined the channel membership during the stream as well, but it's hard to find those notifications again. So I'd like to thank them, and I'm sorry I couldn't give you the normal thanks. The channel memberships do still give you benefits, even though I've moved many streams onto Twitch. Okay, and thanks for the moderators, even though you didn't really have anything to do. I mean, to be fair, I actually had to time out or ban a few people on this stream, actually. Myself. But it's fine when it's other people talking. Then I can look at the chat and ban people. It's not as horrible as if it was a Victoria 2 session, where all my attention's on the game. But that's all very, very well. And you can join my Discord as well, don't forget. My Discord link is also in the description. And you can follow me on Twitter, where we have robust discussions and you can get the latest updates there. And I'll probably have an OpenTTD stream tomorrow with PieChucker and the boys on Twitch. So thank you all very much for the engagement. This stream is going to go out as a public video, so if you missed any of the important topics, you can go back, watch the VOD at your own pace, anytime, live on the main channel, and that's the format I'll keep things. My own chat window was glitched. We'll just try and get the chat back. There we go. Yeah, so hopefully we get a big turnout for the Victoria 2 stream on Sunday. That was just an absolutely fascinating stream, as well as nice and funny and enjoyable. These guys are... let's face it, I always have a bit of that imposter feeling when I'm with these people, because I'm just some idiot who makes some streams and videos, whereas these guys are all very educated and professional people. But I don't really feel like that. I know what I do, and I do a good thing. I work hard on my channel and stuff as well. But anyway, it's all been very fun, and it's great to talk to Joe again after a very long time. We go way back, as you can tell from the stream. And that's it. My chat window is glitched out again. I love streaming on Twitch because the chat is always there and I can read it. I can't read it here. Thanks everyone so much for the viewership. Good night, and I look forward to the future of this project, as well as the stuff on my channel. Aragon finale will come out on Friday. Thanks everyone. Bye.